The scene shifts to the Eastern Depot guest hall, where an army arrives at a gruesome sight. Blood stains the ground, and countless bodies lie scattered across the area. Li Om observes the carnage and thinks about how horrifying it is that such a violent clash could have occurred without anyone in the vicinity noticing. He considers the possibility that the sound might have been deliberately suppressed, but quickly dismisses it as impossible, reasoning that not even their commander could accomplish such a feat. He promptly orders his troops to categorize the bodies, and they rush to carry out his instructions, their movements swift and purposeful amid the grim scene. Li Om scans the area and notices another team arriving. He wonders if they are the eunuchs and, if so, what their presence here means. One of the individuals approaches him, commenting that while he had smelled blood before stepping into the area, the scene is far worse than expected. It's clear that many lives have been lost. Li Om, sensing the attempt to provoke him, asks what has brought the other person here. He responds confidently, stating that Li Om is already well aware of the reason for their presence and, from this point forward, they will take the lead in the investigation. Li Om challenges him, asserting that any murder committed inside the Imperial Palace should be handled by the embroidered guards, not anyone else. The other person counters, asking where Li Om thinks he is standing. With a firm expression, Li Om replies that while the Eastern Depot may be responsible for the Eastern Hall, they hold the investigative authority when it comes to crimes, especially considering the murder of dozens of maids and other palace staff. He adds that they should not argue over jurisdiction at this moment, but instead focus on the task at hand. The other person laughs, a hint of mockery in his tone, and claims that Li Om must be mistaken. He states that the embroidered guards themselves are involved in the crime. Li Om, taken aback, demands clarification, asking what the other person means by that. The leader of the eunuchs then orders his warriors to arrest all the embroidered guards, accusing them of bringing spies into the imperial palace. His command is immediately followed, and the warriors rush forward, quickly overpowering the guards and tying them up. Li Om is furious and asks what spies they are referring to, questioning who would dare frame the embroidered guards for such a heinous crime. The eunuch leader coldly responds that it was a mere embroidered guard who dared speak out against an imperial order from the Soul King. Confused and alarmed, Li Om wonders what the eunuch means by Soul King. Meanwhile, in the Sea of Stars Palace, where Prince Chen Ju Tijium resides, Soul King Ju Tiun calmly inquires whether the preparations are complete. Lim Qinghua, the head of the Eastern Depot, assures him that everything is ready. He reports that the investigation of the Imperial Tomb should have already begun, with the Miram Alliance involved as well. Ju Tiun expresses his hope that everything will proceed smoothly. One of his guards responds affirmatively, saying that he has already received confirmation that all preparations are in place and that everything is on schedule. Ju Tiun nods, his voice calm but firm, and says that once his position is solidified with this incident, he will begin to actively support the supreme saber of the 6 martial arts sects. His guard bows deeply in front of him, acknowledging the statement as an honor. Ju Tiun then orders the operation to begin. Lim Qinghua agrees, his tone equally composed, and announces that they are here to arrest Prince Chen. Just as Lim Qinghua speaks, Prince Chen suddenly appears before them. He bows respectfully, greeting his brother with a measured tone and asking what brings him here. Ju Tiun feels a surge of irritation at his younger brother's arrogance, but masks it with a cold smile. He responds with a simple remark, noting that it has indeed been a while since they last met. He swiftly shifts the conversation, pointing out that it doesn't seem like an appropriate time for small talk. He questions why the eunuchs are surrounding his palace, clearly unsettled by their presence. Lim Qinghua responds, his voice solemn, explaining that a grave incident has occurred at the palace. He reveals that last night, dozens of maids and other workers from the Eastern Depot were killed in the guest hall. Prince Chen's expression darkens, and he becomes confused as he asks what exactly that means. Lim Qinghua states that the main issue is not the one being discussed. Instead, they have received news that the culprits have stolen the founding emperor's treasure. Prince Chen inquires if Lim is implying that he has some involvement in this incident. Lim responds, urging him not to be so angry, and suggests that it appears the members of the demonic cult managed to infiltrate his side through his emissary, gaining access to the imperial palace that way. He adds that this is the testimony of the hall masters who survived the battle last night. Prince Chen asks if this means Lim is implying he brought them here. Lim answers vaguely, stating that it is unclear who is responsible, but His Imperial Majesty has ordered them to uncover the truth and arrest the culprits. Prince Chen questions what Lim means by arrest, daring him to try if he intends to arrest him. Ju Tiyun scolds him, remarking that he is rather confident after his actions, and suggests that he should at least have the conscience to submit calmly for arrest if he is indeed involved in the matter. Prince Chen asserts that he has met the people of the demonic cult and believes they are not this foolish. If they were truly behind this, they would not have left any survivors. Arresting him without any evidence would amount to framing. Ju Tiyun asks if Prince Chen truly thinks he would act without evidence, pointing out that the people from the Eastern Depot, the physicians of the Imperial Palace, and the members of the Miram Alliance are currently examining the bodies. Prince Chen replies that he will not believe it until he sees the evidence with his own eyes, to which Ju Tiyun responds that this is how Prince Chen wishes to proceed. Lim Chenghua comments that it seems Prince Chen will not easily accept his fate, suggesting he might as well show him the proof. Ju Tiyun questions why he should do so when they could simply arrest him by force. Prince Chen agrees to allow himself to be arrested, provided the proof is shown. Ju Tiyun thinks to himself that this is perfect. He had anticipated this reaction, knowing Prince Chen's hatred of losing. This is what happens when Prince Chen considers himself his equal, even though he is merely the child of their father's second wife. Ju Tiyun resolves to crush him so thoroughly that he will never again think of himself as an equal. The scene shifts to the Imperial Palace, specifically the Imperial Palace Guardian Hall, where Ju Tiyun arrives and gazes at the portrait of the king. His eyes then fall upon the dragon pattern on the wall. He reflects that the end has already been written. He will not be proclaimed the heir to the throne, not because of any merit, but because he has been arrested under suspicion of such grave crimes. He suspects that the bodies are already filled with traces of the demonic cult's martial arts, which means it is over for him. The scene transitions to the central hall of the Imperial Palace Guardian Hall, where all the bodies have been gathered for their funeral rites. A guard approaches, bows before him, and greets him, addressing him as His Imperial Highness. Ju Tiyun asks how much progress has been made in the investigation. The guard responds that they have just finished and assures him that the details can be reported later. Ju Tiyun, however, walks away and insists that the report be given to him immediately. He orders the guard to come with him as he wants to inspect the matter for himself. Prince Chen agrees, acknowledging the situation. Blade Master, observing the scene, notes that he heard there were several more floors to this place. Yet, there are already over 50 corpses gathered here. He reflects that it should have taken a considerable amount of time to leave such traces, especially with only 5 people involved, meaning they must have worked quite hard. He considers that now the martial artists of the Miram Alliance only need to conclude that the demonic cult is responsible for these actions. The demonic cult scoundrels, unaware of the framing taking place, will never see it coming. Blade Master believes that with this, they will acquire the mythical creature's blood, gain the future emperor's support, and apply pressure on the demonic cult, all while killing 3 birds with 1 stone. He imagines that this will be the culmination of years of effort. Meanwhile, Ju Tiyun becomes enraged and lashes out, attacking a guard. He insists that this cannot be the case, stating that there must be a spy from the demonic cult within the investigation team. He orders the guard to find out who they are and bring them to him immediately. Ju Tiyun then questions what the guard means by claiming that the traces left on the bodies were from the martial arts of the Supreme Saber of the 6 martial arts sect, firmly rejecting this possibility. Blade Master, observing this outburst, wonders what Ju Tiyun is doing. Eunuch Im instructs the guards to place the bodies according to the location of their injuries, and his guards acknowledge the order. Meanwhile, the 12th leader of the Miram Alliance's 17 leaders, Taoist Master Chung Su, the leader of the Kongtong sect, surveys the bodies and thinks to himself how awful the scene is. He had come to examine the bodies at the request of a martial artist from the Six Blades Martial School. As he looks over the corpses, he wonders whether the demonic cult truly committed such an atrocious act. While the demonic cult is known for its aggressive martial artists, they are not typically associated with acts of theft like those carried out by the scoundrels of unorthodox sects. He contemplates that, whether or not it was their doing, the truth can be uncovered through careful examination of the bodies. His role is simply to report the facts as he sees them. Eunuch Im, spotting a person in the vicinity, thinks to himself that the individual is a cook. He recalls hearing some rumors, but he never imagined that not only the court ladies but also the cooks in the palace of the Guardian Hall would be involved in such matters. He observes a wound closely and wonders if it was caused by a flexible sword. The thought lingers, what on earth could have caused this? As he deliberates, a guard approaches and bows, announcing that they greet his highnesses, but corrects himself, saying they must meet Taoist Master Chengsu instead. Meanwhile, in another part of the hall, Zhu Tiyun furiously strikes a guard and exclaims that such a situation cannot be possible. He insists that there must be spies from the demonic cult embedded within the investigation team. He orders the guards to bring those spies before him immediately and make them kneel. His voice rises as he points out the traces left on the bodies, identifying them as the techniques of the Six Blades Martial School's martial arts. He demands how such a thing could even be possible. Blade Master watches the scene unfold in shock, his thoughts racing as he questions what Zhu Tiyun is doing. Lim Qinghua steps forward, addressing Zhu Tiyun, and demands an explanation. He points out that if the Six Blades Martial School is involved, it does not fall under his faction. Blade Master acknowledges this, admitting it is true, but insists that there is no way this could be possible. In the meantime, a guard approaches Eunuch Im with urgency, calling out that there is a problem. Eunuch Im, composed but wary, responds by acknowledging his presence. The guard steps closer and explains that he has just learned about the current situation. He points out that the individuals nearby are members of the Six Blades Martial School. While their plan may be jeopardized, he suggests that arresting those individuals first could clear them of suspicion and redirect the blame effectively. Eunuch Im states that the immediate issue lies with the corpses, prompting Chengsu to remark that traces of the wavy flexible sword art are evident on them, invoking Yuanshi Tianzun with a solemn tone. Lim Qinghua, confused, inquires about the meaning of the wavy flexible sword art. Chengsu explains that the wavy flexible sword art is a specialized sword technique created for eunuchs by Eunuch Yu, the master of the current East Hall commander, Eunuch Im. He elaborates further, stating that Eunuch Yu, the former commander of the East Hall and the renowned master of the Sunflower Manual, developed this technique as a hallmark of East Hall swordsmanship. Over time, the East Hall and its members adopted flexible swords as their primary weapons, making the technique a symbol of their expertise. Lim Qinghua wonders what this revelation signifies. Stricken with uncertainty, he bows deeply before Zhu Tiyun and pleads, insisting that such a possibility cannot be true. He turns to Taoist Master Chengsu and implores him to re-examine the corpses, questioning why the East Hall would commit such an act. Chengsu responds that he has already examined 20 bodies and finds no room for doubt. He reiterates that the traces unmistakably belong to the wavy flexible sword art. He invites Lim Qinghua to inspect the evidence personally, assuring him. He states that the remaining sword traces unmistakably originate from the same swordsmanship demonstrated by the East Hall officials during their performance. Lim Qinghua recalls that not long ago, the Imperial Palace hosted a Taoist event to celebrate the New Year. Following the event, the Muram Alliance's 9 great sects and the Taoist priests gathered to observe martial performances conducted by members of the East Hall, the West Hall, and the embroidered uniform guards. He reflects on the performance, cursing inwardly. A master of Taoist Master Chengsu's caliber would not easily forget swordsmanship once witnessed. Prince Chen interjects, affirming the statement and addressing his remarks to His Highness. Zhu Tiyun, suspicious, demands clarification on what he means by that. Prince Chen responds with laughter, which only heightens his unease. As Zhu Tiyun watches, he begins to suspect that the one orchestrating this trap is none other than Prince Chen. He wonders where it all went wrong. Reflecting bitterly, he realizes that entrusting the investigation to Taoist Master Chengsu, renowned for his fairness, has led to this precarious situation. He wonders if this, too, was part of Prince Chen's plan. Prince Chen remarks that His Majesty will be greatly disappointed. Zhu Tiyun, unsettled, demands an explanation for such a statement and begins to think in alarm. The Dragon Boat Festival is approaching, a crucial time when the Crown Prince is to be appointed. If His Majesty learns of this incident, all the trust Zhu Tiyun has painstakingly built up will be destroyed. Fuming, Zhu Tiyun accuses Prince Chen, claiming this is all his doing. He angrily denounces him, declaring that a mere son of a concubine has dared to concoct such a wicked scheme and aim for the Crown Prince's position. He calls him a scoundrel, insisting that he must have tampered with the bodies. At that moment, Ran appears behind him, stating that this lowly subordinate would like to explain that matter. Lim Chenghua, hearing the voice, wonders if it belongs to a woman. In the blink of an eye, Ran steps forward and bows before Ju Tiyun, leaving everyone in stunned silence. Lim Chenghua stares at her in disbelief, thinking about when she arrived. Her presence is extraordinary, her movements so swift and precise that her martial prowess feels unfathomable. He questions who this person could possibly be. Ju Tiyun demands to know who she is and how she dares to appear before him. In response, she calmly presents her badge, stating that she is the person in charge of the Guardian Hall that protects the Imperial Tomb, the first Guardian, and Ran Young. Chenghua, stunned, begins to think. If she truly is the first Guardian of the Guardian Hall, it would mean she is someone from 2 centuries ago. Such a possibility seems inconceivable. There is no way a person like her could still be alive in this era. Ju Tiyun snatches the badge from her, scoffing at what he calls nonsense. Yet, as he reads it, his expression shifts to disbelief. The badge bears the Emperor's seal, an unmistakable mark of authenticity. He realizes that this woman is indeed the first guardian of the Imperial Palace Guardian Hall. He is left speechless, questioning how this could be possible. Chenghua bows respectfully, his mind racing. He addresses Ju Tiyun, suggesting that this situation might actually work in their favor. If Ran Young truly is the last surviving master of the Imperial Palace Guardian Hall, they could redirect all the blame onto the Six Blades Martial School. As the thought settles, Chenghua begins to see a path forward. If they manage this properly, both East Hall and Ju Tiyun can escape their current predicament. He reassures himself that they are not out of options yet. Ju Tiyun turns to Ran and demands to know what exactly she wishes to explain. Bowing respectfully, Ran replies that the treasure of the Imperial Palace, entrusted to them by His Majesty, the founding emperor, has been taken by the eunuchs of the East Hall and a group of traitors. She lowers her head further, pleading for punishment as a lowly subordinate. Prince Chen's voice cuts through the tense silence, asking if she truly just accused the eunuchs of the East Hall of targeting the Imperial Palace's treasure. The guards, visibly shocked, exchange stunned looks at the gravity of the claim. Chenghua, feeling the weight of the situation, starts calculating his options. At this rate, the East Hall will undeniably be labeled as a traitor. His expression hardens as he turns to Eunuch Im, stating there is no alternative. He declares that their only choice is to eliminate everyone present and silence them. He summons the Blade Master, his voice resolute, and asserts that if they kill everyone here, they can alter the evidence to suit their narrative. This location is restricted and accessible to very few. In this case, the only individuals who could pose a challenge are the Kongtong Sect Master and the Southern Military Officer. His gaze sharpens as it lands on Ran, the so-called First Guardian. Though she appears formidable, Chenghua concludes that she, along with everyone else, can be subdued. With the Blade Master, an enlightened Grandmaster, at his side and 200 eunuchs from the East Hall armed and ready, their power far surpasses that of their opponents. Chenghua's thoughts race, realizing there is no other way for them to resolve this situation. With grim determination, he states that His Highness has fallen victim to a conspiracy. He orders his guards to protect Prince Chen by eliminating this group of so-called traitors. His commands are swiftly acknowledged, and the guards rush to attack. Prince Chen, panic rising, hides behind Taoist Master Chengsu, his thoughts filled with frustration. Damn, they plan to silence everyone by killing them. He looks desperately at Chengsu and orders him to protect him. Chengsu, unfazed, calls for the Kongtong disciples to shield the prince from the approaching traitors. In unison, they declare their obedience, forming a defensive boundary around Prince Chen. A general arrives, urgently commanding the guards to protect the prince. The guards acknowledge the order, rushing to carry it out. Meanwhile, Eunuch Im, sword drawn, contemplates how he can manage the situation with only 3 embroidered uniform guards at his disposal. The general, scorn evident in his expression, thinks to himself that the eunuch has finally shown his true colors. Just as the tension peaks, Blade Master calls for the Blood Blade Master, recognizing that things will not end easily. Suppose he can manage to deal with the woman known as the First Guardian in the midst of the chaos. Chen Yaon arrives, swift as a shadow. He delivers a precise strike, cutting off the Blade Master's hand. Shock spreads across his face, and he turns to her, demanding to know what this means. He sneers, still in disbelief, asking how she can dare to speak such nonsense even after losing an arm. He wonders if the voice that now confronts him truly belongs to a man before realizing with a sinking feeling that the individual before him is not who he had expected. The scene shifts to 2 hours earlier, at the hour of the rabbit, around 5 in the morning, inside Nyanjong Palace's guest hall, within Prince Zhu Tiyun's palace. Blade Club Master Chu Xiong of the Six Blades Martial School stands in tense contemplation. It's late. According to the original plan, they should have finished their task by the middle of the hour of the tiger, around 4 am. Could it be that they have failed? Since their official emergence in Muram, this marks the 3rd time they have deployed such a large number of masters. In pursuit of their goal, even the Blood Blade Master, an upper-level expert, had been enlisted. Xiong wonders about the formidable masters from the Imperial Palace's Guardian Hall. How incredible they must be. Just as his thoughts race, Yao's voice breaks the silence. He asks if he has been waiting, his presence calm and deliberate. Xiong gets scared, immediately challenging his presence. He demands to know who he is, hurling insults his way. However, Xiong feels no sense of fear or hesitation in his stance. Yao, unfazed, draws his sword in one smooth motion. Xiong's eyes widened in recognition, and he immediately realized the significance of Blood Blade Master's blade. Xiong hesitates, narrowing his eyes as he replies. If he is truly the Blood Blade Master, why is he covering his face? Yao counters with a calm inquiry, asking if he requires further proof. Xiong thinks to himself that the arrogant tone unmistakably belongs to the Blood Blade Master. If she were an enemy, she would have already targeted his back. Reluctantly convinced, he nods. Fine, he understands. Acknowledging the urgency of their mission, he urges them to proceed quickly, mentioning that His Highness is waiting. Gesturing forward, he tells Yao to follow him. As they move, Xiong, observing from his position, feels an inexplicable unease. Until a moment ago, the voice he heard was unmistakably the Blood Blade Master's, but now it suddenly sounds like a man's. Suspicion flares as he struggles to rise, demanding to know who Yao truly is. His voice sharpens as he asks what happened to the Blood Blade Master. His blade arcs through the air, targeting Xiong's defenses. He remarks coolly on how talkative he is. Xiong attempts to block the attack with his club, a weapon forged of cold iron and renowned for its durability. But to his shock, he cannot repel her strike. His mind reels. This is impossible, he thinks. His club, crafted with such resilience, should not falter. Yet, this scoundrel's strength far surpasses his own. Panic flickers in his gaze as realization dawns. He is facing an opponent far beyond his capabilities. He thinks the opponent's attack was merely a light swing, nothing extraordinary, yet he is being overwhelmed in terms of inner Kai. Desperation sets in as he realizes he must turn his opponent's strength against him. He attempts a counterattack, aiming for a decisive strike. Yao sidesteps the incoming blow, evading the attack effortlessly. Xiong, refusing to relent, launches a relentless barrage, his movements fierce and calculated. He believes that by redirecting his attack's trajectory, Yao will have no room to employ modified movements. Yet, before he can seize the advantage, Yao retaliates. His strike lands with devastating force, sending him hurtling backward. He crashes into the wall, the impact reverberating through the hall. Blood spills from his mouth as he collapses to the ground. He struggles to breathe, his thoughts frantic. Impossible, he thinks. Even after channeling all his inner Kai into his maneuverability, it was deflected with such ease. His gaze shifts to his shattered weapon. His cold iron club, renowned for its resilience, lies in pieces. What kind of monster is this? It's no wonder even the Blood Blade Master was defeated by someone of this caliber. Gritting his teeth, he grabs a jagged piece of broken rock. He wonders if they don't kill this monster, their grand plan will come to ruin. He contemplates the forbidden technique, the divine blood reversal gathering technique, a dangerous move he has yet to master. He isn't sure if it will work against this opponent, but at this point, it's his only option. He believes his power is overflowing, and his Kai is increasing explosively. With this surge of strength, he feels capable of annihilating everyone present. As Jin approaches, placing a hand on his head, a bolt of lightning is unleashed upon him. Xiong lets out a piercing scream as his body burns, and all his hair is scorched away. Chen observes with disdain, noting that scoundrels like him always resort to the same predictable methods, which have become tedious. He remarks that there is no need for frustration, as Seong simply chose the wrong opponent. Meanwhile, Eunuch Im strikes Namgun, delivering precise cuts to his body before placing a sword at his neck. With a tone of disappointment, Eunuch Im remarks that the southern military officer's skills are underwhelming, amounting to so little. Namgun, overwhelmed by the situation, reflects on his condition. The injury from before has left him with insufficient strength in his arms when he recalls Marikiam's attack on him. Yet, he remains determined to fulfill his duty to protect His Highness at all costs. Despite his resolve, he laments that neither now nor back then was he able to accomplish anything. He fears that at this rate, he will never be able to face His Highness with pride. Eunuch Im stabs him again, remarking that it seems he can still afford to look elsewhere. He adds that he will ensure Namgun regrets not giving his all in their fight. Prince Chen notices the scene, his expression filled with worry, as he calls out to Yon Namgun. In response, Eunuch Im remarks that judging by his continued movements, he must have avoided a vital area. He adds that it would have been better to embrace death at once instead of prolonging the inevitable. Namgun attempts to strike, but Eunuch Im catches his sword mid-swing, commenting that his continued struggle until the end suggests he feels it is unjust. Eunuch Im retorts that nothing will change regardless of his efforts, while Namgun calls him so noisy that it is unbearable. With a swift motion, Namgun drives his sword into Eunuch Im's chin, uttering a cold command to eat it. From a distance, Lim observes the scene, thinking that distraction on a battlefield is equivalent to a death sentence. He questions whether the man struggling is the Blade Club master and concludes that if he has fallen, there is no salvaging the situation. Taking advantage of the chaos, Lim hurls a set of needles toward Namgun. His thoughts turn to his ultimate goal of using this distraction to eliminate Prince Ju Ti-yun first. Hyobong uses his flame skill to intercept the needles, laughing as he remarks on the futility of such a weak attack. When Lim attempts to grab him, Hyobong sidesteps effortlessly, causing Lim to stumble and fall. Lim, overwhelmed, thinks in disbelief about the oppressive nature of this true Kai. Despite being a peak true grandmaster, he finds himself unable to take even a single step under its immense pressure. Yaun removes his scarf, activating his lightning-infused hand, and commands Lim to kneel. Several guards collapse as a powerful aura fills the air. One of them struggles to speak, admitting he cannot move, while another exclaims in confusion, questioning what is happening all of a sudden. Despite his efforts to move, one guard insists they cannot afford to lose like this. Changsu and his guard step forward cautiously. The guard, noticing the intense atmosphere, asks what is happening. Changsu instructs him to remain still and watch, explaining that the figure before them is one of the 5 great masters. The guard, startled, asks what he means, comparing the individual to the leader of the Muram Alliance. Changsu reflects silently, recognizing that while the figure is not actively exerting pressure, the overwhelming presence of his true Kai is impossible to ignore. He marvels at the level of control displayed, wondering how such an oppressive sense of intimidation can emanate from someone who appears to be no older than 20. Several eunuchs collapse to the ground, one of them crying out for Eunuch Im and pleading for someone to save him. Lim glances at the fallen guards, his thoughts racing as he questions the situation. He wonders if only the eunuchs of the East Hall are being suppressed by the overwhelming true Kai. As his mind churns, he observes the embroidered uniform guards, baffled by how they remain unaffected. The realization strikes him if the young man is aligned with the embroidered uniform guards, it could explain their immunity. Reflecting further, Lim recalls being so fixated on capturing the prince that he failed to notice certain details. That bald man, Hyobong, clearly used Flame Kai, a technique that raises suspicion. Lim speculates whether the man has consumed spiritual beast blood, questioning how he remains alive despite being human. However, one certainty looms in his mind: the prince has allied himself with these individuals. Meanwhile, Prince Chen approaches Namgun and asks if he is unharmed. Lim struggles to rise, his resolve hardening as he thinks of his duty. He must survive and report this revelation to the Imperial Palace. Only then will there be a chance to turn the tide of the battle. He considers that while the pressure of the true Kai is immense, it cannot fully subdue him. If he focuses on gathering his inner Kai and resisting, he should be able to leap to a height beyond the reach of this oppressive force. He concludes that this should provide the opportunity he needs. Lim crosses his hands, concentrating on summoning all his power for an attack. He reflects on the technique he is about to use, the hidden weapon art containing the essence of the Sunflower Manual. Though it demands a significant amount of his inner Kai, its power is extraordinary. He is confident that no matter how monstrous his opponent may be, this attack will be unstoppable. Activating the wavy exclusive technique, Lim employs the Sunflower Manual's wave of 10,000 needles to strike. His thoughts shift to the origins of this martial art, recalling that it was developed by the East Hall commander, Qinghua. The technique was inspired by the Tang family's heaven-showering flower, renowned for its mastery of hidden weapons and poison. He explains that as one of the wavy techniques from the Sunflower Manual, the wavy exertion method enables its users to disperse their Kai outward in rippling waves, creating an overwhelming assault. Lim's needles streak toward Namgun and Prince Chen with deadly precision. In a desperate act, Namgun pulls Prince Chen into his arms, shielding him from the attack. Namgun questions aloud where the sudden wind has come from just as Marikium steps between them, deflecting all the needles with ease. Hyobong, summoning his flame power, attempts to assist, but he realizes the needles carry an intensity far beyond their previous strength. At this rate, the needles will pierce through. Just as he feels his limit approaching, Ran pushes him aside, stepping forward to block the attack. Ran remarks that Hyobong is quite high maintenance, reminding him that his control over Flame Kai remains insufficient. He warns Hyobong not to lower his guard, and the latter nods in agreement, humbled by the observation. At the same moment, Li Hwamyong draws his flaming sword, his voice firm as he declares that they cannot afford to endanger such a valuable witness. Chengsu reflects on the immense power radiating from Ran, concluding that it must at least belong to the transcendent realm, no, perhaps even the peak of the unrestrained realm. But it is not just him. Chengsu realizes with growing astonishment that the others present also possess strength in the unrestrained realm. These individuals are elite experts, and he cannot fathom how so many top-tier warriors have converged in a single place like this. Chengsu reflects on the situation, thinking that if these experts are assisting him, there is no room for doubt. This person must be the leader of the heavenly demonic cult. His gaze shifts to Yaon with a mix of awe and apprehension. Meanwhile, Lim charges forward, attempting another attack. He shouts in disbelief, questioning how Yaon can block his needles without even releasing his true Kai. Yaon, unperturbed, easily deflects the assault. Nano machine activates, reporting that the funnel system has successfully eroded the needles by channeling the user's energy through them. Yaon dismisses the attack as pathetic, effortlessly forming a shield around himself. Lim, shaken, observes the precision and control of Yaon's abilities. He wonders how, beyond possessing such immense inner Kai, someone can spread their attention so widely. Desperate, Lim commands Nano to retrieve the needles. Nano machine acknowledges the command, stating that the funnel remote system on the needles is being activated. The system locks onto the target, preparing to redirect the needles back toward their origin. Yaon remarks that since the needles belong to him, he will return them to their owner. Lim watches, his thoughts racing as he realizes how quickly they are coming for him. He knows he has no choice but to block them. Summoning his wavy exertion technique, he prepares to retaliate. Lim's mind sharpens as he reflects on his plan. If Yaon believes he is the only one capable of such feats, Lim reasons, there must be a limit to his inner Kai. Even if Yaon is a monster, exhausting his Kai will weaken him, and once that happens, his true Kai will dissipate. Lim believes that once he has drained him, he can seize the opportunity in the ensuing confusion to escape with his highness. Yaon expresses his disbelief that Lim has yet to give up. In a swift motion, he slices through Lim's arm. Lim cries out in shock and anguish. Yaon coldly instructs him to kneel, and Lim, barely able to comprehend the situation, gasps in disbelief. He questions how Yaon can still have so much inner Kai left. Yaon responds that Lim seems confused. He reiterates that Lim should give up, as he can do nothing further. Lim, despite his pain, attempts to rise again, his thoughts focused on the power of Yaon's true Kai. Without hesitation, Yaon cuts through Lim's other arm, repeating his earlier command. He asks if Lim has already forgotten his earlier words. This time, Lim cries out once more, his body racked with pain. Lim kneels, his body trembling as the other eunuchs watch in disbelief. One of the three masters of the Imperial Palace could be defeated so easily. The loss was overwhelming and one-sided. Lim weakly demands to know who Yaon is, questioning his audacity to block his path. Yaon calmly responds, asking if Lim still does not understand. He declares that he is the master of the place Lim tried to frame for something they did not do. Lim asks in disbelief what Yaon means by frame. Then, it dawns on him, and he stammers, wondering if Yaon is the leader of the heavenly demonic cult. Yaon affirms with a simple "that's right," and steps closer to Lim. He warns that Lim should now be fully aware of the consequences awaiting him. Lim insists that he is an official of the Great Ming Empire, emphasizing his status despite Yaon being the leader of the demonic cult. However, Yaon silences him with a firm grip on his face, stopping him mid-sentence. With brutal precision, he slams Lim's face and severs his head from his neck in one swift motion. The other eunuchs, horrified by the ruthless execution, are visibly shaken. Yaon calmly observes the scene, asking mockingly if Lim's title as an official changes anything. Prince Chen, witnessing the cold decisiveness of Yaon's actions, is stunned. He had expected the prince to face punishment, but not such a swift and ruthless execution. He wonders if Lim was unaware of the non-aggression pact between the government and Miram. As the reality of the situation sets in, Prince Chen reflects on Yuan Shitianzun, unable to comprehend how such an event could unfold. Chengsu watches from a distance and recalls that eunuch Lim was a true grandmaster, yet he was subdued so easily. With that level of strength, Chengsu concludes that there is no doubt that Yaon is indeed the leader of the demonic cult. Chengsu recalls the time when Yeagle Sohi was sent as an envoy to the demonic cult. At that point, Yaon was still the young leader. Though he had quickly risen to become the cult's true leader, the Miram Alliance had regarded him as little more than a child. Yet, as Chengsu observes him now, he can no longer see him as a mere growing emoji. Instead, he perceives him as a fully mature dragon, an overwhelming force of power, especially when the shadow of an ice dragon appears behind Yaon. Chengsu turns to Yonglun and instructs him to pay close attention to Yaon's facial expressions, so he can later capture his likeness in a portrait of their sect. Then, turning back to the scene, he asks for clarification, inquiring who this person really is. The response comes with certainty. It is Yaon, the leader of the demonic cult. Chengsu asks if it is acceptable for the leader of the demonic cult to be in a place like this. He raises the concern that if the Miram Alliance learns of their intrusion into the demonic cult's territory, it could cause an uproar. Woon knows it would be unwise to offend the demonic cult leader, especially at this moment. He reflects on Yuan Shitianzun's wisdom, understanding that no good will come from confronting Qin Yaon now. Chengsu nods in acknowledgement and says he understands the situation. Meanwhile, Woon wonders if Chengsu, one of the 17 masters of the orthodox sects and the renowned Kongtong lustrous sword Taoist, is feeling the weight of wariness towards the demonic cult leader. All the guards bow down in reverence. Despite their intentions to prevent him from approaching the prince, their bodies freeze in place, trembling with fear. One of the guards thinks to himself that the pressure is unimaginable. Even though the demonic cult leader has withdrawn some of his true kai, the eunuchs are still unable to stand firm before him. Ju Tiyun, observing the chaos around him, bows down as well, his gaze locked on Lim's severed head. He seethes with rage, questioning how anyone could dare commit such an act. He demands to know who Yaon is and how someone so audacious could stand in his way. Ju Tiyun laments the failed plan, believing that everything was supposed to go according to his design. If it had, he would have secured his position as the rightful ruler and toppled the disgusting scoundrel who had hindered his ambitions. All of this chaos is Yaon's fault. He asks how an outlaw like him can stand in the way of this prince when Yaon activates his lightning skill, remarking that his tongue is quite long and admitting that he had been trying to frame their cult and capture him with it. He inquires what is meant by their cult, calling it a demonic cult, and Yaon responds that he is pleased he understands. Now, it is time to pay the price. He declares that he is the Great Ming Empire's prince and questions how a mere subject dares to treat a member of the royal family in this manner, asking if he realizes what he is doing. Yaon states that he hasn't even begun yet, and as he twists Ju Tiyun's arm behind his back, the prince screams, outraged that a lowly scoundrel dares to break his royal arm. He warns that Yaon will regret it when the demonic cultists are wiped out from the Central Plains because of him. Yaon pushes him away, and as a guard looks on, he demands to know how a Muram person dares to harm His Highness' esteemed body. The guards rush toward him, ordering him to release the prince immediately. But Yaon calmly states that they are throwing their lives away in vain. He uses his lightning skill to create circles around the necks of all the guards, and Ju Tiyun, thinking that he has killed them, wonders whether Yaon cares at all, whether it concerns the imperial palace officials or the prince, and proceeds to abuse him. Yaon replies that it is time to end this, but Ju Tiyun begs him to wait, claiming that this prince made a slip of the tongue and asking how a mere prince like him could break His Majesty the founding emperor's oath, pleading for forgiveness. Yaon remarks that it is a pity, for had he continued speaking nonsense, he could have severed at least one of his arms. Ju Tiyun, confused, asks what he means by his arms. Suddenly, a shiny smoke appears, and Ju Tiyun realizes that it is the result of Yaon's attack. He senses that there is more than one of them and wonders who they are. Ju Tiyun declares that it is enough to vent his anger. Yaon responds that, as promised, he will leave dealing with His Highness to someone else. Ju Tiyun asks what he means by promise, and Yaon simply says to do as he wishes. At that moment, Ju Tijayam arrives, and Ju Tiyun looks behind him, trembling and calling his name. Ju Ti asks him if his arm is all right, expressing regret that the plan he put so much effort into has gone to waste. He then asks if Ju Tiyun is willing to admit his defeat. Ju Tiyun responds that Commander M from the East Hall is dead, and he is in this state. Even if there are witnesses, does he truly think His Majesty, the Emperor, will trust him, the son of a concubine? No, the power will instead shift towards the third prince. He calls Chengsu, who responds affirmatively. Ju Tiyun then asks if Chengsu does not realize that he has a close relationship with the alliance leader, urging him not to get involved in this matter. Chengsu reflects that, despite the situation, His Highness is unwilling to give up power until the very end Yuanqi Tianzhen. He replies that if the members of the investigation team turn a blind eye to this, he will not become the crown prince. Ju Tiyun demands to know who dares to interfere, just as others arrive at the scene. One of them bows and announces that the second prince, Ju Tijayam, greets His Majesty, the great emperor of the Great Ming Empire. They all greet His Majesty, the great emperor of the Great Ming Empire, as Ju Tiwan arrives. Yaon thinks to himself that the emperor's arrival has made things quite troublesome. Ju Tiyun looks at them and runs toward them for help, pleading with His Majesty to save him. He claims that due to the conspiracy of the second prince, Admiral Lim Chenghua of the Eastern Hall lost his life and ended up in this state. Prince Chen thinks that they have arrived as expected, while Ju Tiyun continues to beg His Majesty, questioning why he looks at him with such cold eyes. He points to his severely injured arm and asks why His Majesty isn't saying anything. Ju Tiyun insists that His Majesty must believe him, stating that the entire situation is the work of the second prince and that concubine. Ju Tiwan interrupts, commanding him to shut his mouth and revealing that he knows the plot between Ju Tiyun and the Eastern Hall Admiral. Prince Chen looks at them and thinks how foolish Ju Tiyun is, considering that although he has gained the support of many officials, including the Eastern Hall Admiral, all the power in the imperial court is still concentrated in the hands of His Majesty the Emperor. He wonders if Ju Tiyun truly believes there is a place in the palace where His Majesty's eyes and ears cannot reach. Ju Tiwan orders Admiral Seo to summon them, and the Admiral agrees, stating that he will terminate the inspection mission by His Majesty's order. Ju Tiyun wonders what the inspection mission means, and he questions why the eunuchs and officials of the Internal Affairs Department are present. As he looks at them, they all bow. One of them announces that the 5 officials of the Internal Affairs Department, including Captain Sim Hyung, present themselves before His Majesty to conclude the inspection mission. They all bow again, paying their respects to His Majesty. Ju Tiwan commands them to report, and Captain Sim Hyung responds that he has received the order. The eunuch then explained that he had been conducting the inspection mission in the Eastern Hall for half a year. He continues, stating that during this time, he discovered that the first prince had been frequently visiting the Eastern Hall headquarters for the past 3 months. While he, being of lower authority, was unable to uncover all the details, it is true that they attempted to tamper with the bodies in the Imperial Mausoleum and were in collusion with the Blade God's 6 martial clan. Ju Tiwan declares that Ju Tiyun committed an atrocious massacre of the Guardians just to ascend to the position of Crown Prince. As Zhu Tiyun tries to respond, Zhu Tiwan quickly orders him to shut his mouth, expressing his disappointment. He states that all of this is the result of Zhu Tiyun's own inadequacy, and that he should have been raised as strictly as the other princes. He then commands his commander to arrest and detain them immediately. The commander affirms that he will obey His Majesty's stern order, and Zhu Tiwan orders the North Progress warriors to carry out the command. The warriors agree and call their army to action. One of the eunuchs looks at them and asks if that is the Golden Army. Namgun remarks that they have brought quite a few of them, as the commander orders the arrest of all the eunuchs from the Eastern Hall and tasks them with taking charge. The Golden Army thinks of the eunuchs as scum, vowing to make them pay for all the humiliation they have caused. Zhu Tiwan orders them not to dare move, commanding that Zhu Tiyun be dragged away as well and imprisoned in the Yongjiang Palace. Zhu Tiyun, calling out to Zhu Tiwan as his father, begs for forgiveness, pleading with him not to allow these wretches to touch him. He cries out in pain, insisting that this cannot be allowed. He questions why Zhu Tiyun was only punishing him when it was Zhu Tiyun who even dragged in martial artists to kill the Eastern Hall Admiral and put him in this state. Prince Chen, observing this, thinks to himself that Zhu Tiyun is a despicable man, clinging on until the very end. Meanwhile, some guards drag Zhu Tiyun away, who continues calling out to his father. Chengsu reflects that now that His Majesty has taken action, the first prince's plot has been swiftly resolved. He had heard that the first prince was His Majesty's beloved eldest son, yet he was still not spared for his misdeeds. Zhu Tiwan walks away, stating that he has dealt with his son's matter and now must handle the remaining issues. As they all walk out, Prince Chen watches them and thinks that all the eunuchs from the Eastern Hall and the internal palace armory have been caught. He wonders if there are still more matters to be resolved here. At that moment, Jiagi angrily exclaims, "How dare anyone stand upright without kneeling in the presence of the Emperor of the Great Ming, who has graced them with his presence?" He declares that he will kneel this instant, but Zhu Tiwan asks Jom if these are the martial artists he has brought in. Prince Chen responds that he did not bring them in. These are the ones who assisted him. Jiagi, observing the situation, thinks that the way they ruthlessly broke the first prince's arm shows they are definitely not from the Martial Artists Alliance. He wonders if they are from the same group after all. Though he didn't witness everything, he was standing by, trying to separate right from wrong. But how dare they harm his own child? He is filled with uncontrollable rage. Zhu Tiwan then asks Yaun if he is a member of the demonic cult. Yaun bows and replies that he has planned to leave quietly once things are resolved. But it seems fate has other plans. He introduces himself, stating that it is an honor to meet him, and that he is Yaun, the current leader of the Heavenly Demon Cult. Yu Cheng screams in outrage, calling it insolent that Yaun salutes the Emperor with a drawn sword. He declares that Yaun will be torn to pieces for such an offense. Suddenly, Marakiam arrives and places his sword at Yu Cheng's neck, declaring that it is the eunuch who is being disrespectful to their leader, the Heavenly Lord. Yu Cheng is struck with fear at the sight of him. Marakiam asserts that the martial arts world and the government have a non-aggression treaty, and they are not subordinates of the government. Jiagi, observing his mask and swift swordsmanship, recognizes him and remarks that he must be Marakiam, the famous king of death on the battlefield. Jiagi notes that not only did Marakiam draw his sword in front of the emperor, but he also threatened an imperial commander. He wonders if Marakiam really believes he can walk away alive after such actions. At that moment, Li Hwamyong arrives and launches a fire attack at them, but all the warriors block the flames with their armor. Marakiam thinks to himself how noisy this is and wonders if this is how the mighty Great Ming army threatens others. Hwamyong declares that he will give them a clear warning. He will kill anyone who draws a sword but not a shield. Yu Qing thinks to himself that with the demonic cult leader, the King of Death, and the King of Hell all present, it is truly a gathering of heavyweights in the Imperial Palace. Jiagi remarks to the commander that one of the figures seems to be the Grand Priest. Tisik responds, confirming that the Grand Priest is indeed present, and he thinks to himself that it is fortunate they are in the Imperial Mausoleum. He muses that the woman is a 200-year-old monster, and even the most renowned martial artists are mere children in comparison to her. He laughs to himself at the thought. Jiagi addresses the demonic cult members, suggesting that if this is the extent of the commotion just igniting swords, then they should watch closely, for this is the true power of the Imperial Palace. At that moment, Ran jumps into the fray, creating a fire circle around them all. She declares that anyone who dares to threaten their lord will face the wrath of her Elder Mun Ran Yong of the Heavenly Demon Cult, and she will incinerate them where they stand. The provincial commander thinks to himself that the last time he saw Ran was when he inherited his position, and she has not changed at all. As she charges toward him, she taunts him, asking if he realizes what he is doing right now. Ran acknowledges him, calling him the provincial commander of the embroidered uniform guards. She mentions that she has known him since he was a little child, but now he has grown quite bold, shouting at her in such a manner. The provincial commander walks toward her and asks if she remembers the time she insulted him, only for his newly fitted uniform to be reduced to ashes in response. Ran steps closer and attacks him, asking if he doesn't remember. The provincial commander, stunned, asks when she has come closer, just as Ran punches him in the chest, pushing him back. A guard rushes toward the provincial commander, grabbing him and calling out to him worriedly. The provincial commander, still in shock, thinks that this is impossible. He had defended himself with all the kai he could muster, yet he had been pushed back this far. Ran remarks that it seems he is still a little kid, to which he replies that he does not know what kind of scheme they are plotting. A guard advises him that he must recover first. The provincial commander rises again, asserting that his duty is to serve the imperial majesty. He declares that to dare protect a member of the demonic cult is treason, and he will use the Chungjun bestowed upon him by the former emperor to punish her. Hwamyong, observing the situation, thinks to himself that if he is referring to the Chungjun, that is the renowned sword forged by a master artisan from the Chu kingdom. Hwamyong never imagined he would see that sword with his own two eyes. The provincial commander then addresses Ran, asking if she recalls the former emperor, who used to bring the martial artists of the imperial palace here to fight him. He recalls that the emperor always brought this sword with him. Back then, he was nothing more than a child, but now he has grown strong enough to slay her with it. He warns her to come back to them before he gets blood on his hands. He thinks that Ran must be loyal enough to have spent 200 years down here. Even if they played some trick on her, he is certain that she will return to them. He charges toward her, intent on attacking, but she blocks his strike with her flaming power. He recognizes the technique and thinks that it is a familiar one. However, he hadn't expected her to block the technique in such a way. He realizes now that her defense was just a feint. He attacks again, this time breaking through her flame shield. But to his shock, she grabs his sword with her bare hands, and he thinks to himself that she is a monster. She wraps his sword in fire, causing him to shout at her, demanding if she doesn't recall this technique. He explains that the former emperor created it, and he helped complete it. He urges her to remember those moments and the loyalty she once held for the palace, hoping to shake her resolve. He presses further, asking if the flames have disappeared now and if she remembers. In response, she shatters his sword with ease. The provincial commander looks on in terror, his voice trembling as he exclaims, "His sword!" Ran asks why it is so easy to break and tells the provincial commander that he does not understand what he is trying to make her recall. She warns him to stop sugarcoating memories and forcing them on her. She declares that she has lived for the divine cult ever since she was born and has only protected the divine cult's treasure here, so there is no betrayal in her actions. The provincial commander, enraged, abuses her and demands how she dares to defy him. He charges to attack again, but Lim Juhua steps in, placing his hand in front of her mouth, blocking the strike and saving her from harm. Hyo Bong, concerned, calls out to the Great Elder, who calmly declares that it is enough and grabs Ran's hand. Lim Juhua speaks, his voice composed, stating that His Imperial Majesty is watching and suggests that they both cease hostilities. He then bows deeply in front of Zhu Tiwan, apologizing for his intervention. He explains that although he had intended to follow His Majesty's orders to observe, he deemed it dangerous to allow the confrontation to continue. Zhu Tiwan, acknowledging his words, replies that he had intended to ask him to intervene anyway. Lim Juhua respectfully responds, stating that he is at His Majesty's service and will act according to any order given. Chengsu thinks the guard is remarkably fast, as he hadn't even detected his presence. He realizes that the man is the final line of defense for the Emperor, the personal guard, a figure known to all yet whose true identity remains a mystery. He reflects that the person in question is indeed the Emperor's personal guard. Tisik asks his guard if he recognizes the man, but the guard replies that he has never seen him before, noting that the man wasn't present until earlier. Tisik concludes that the guard must have disguised himself to infiltrate the area. He finds the situation strange, realizing that the two hardest figures to encounter, the Emperor's personal guard and the leader of the demonic cult, are both present today. Ran observes the situation and thinks that the guard is performing well. She acknowledges that she couldn't even detect his presence, a stark contrast to how things might have been in the past. Zhu Tiwan turns to Juhua and asks if he truly claims to be the leader of the demonic cult. Qin affirms this. Zhu Tiwan expresses his gratitude for the help provided to his second son and makes it clear that he will not inquire into the reasons behind the assistance. He then calls for Ran. He states that he was the only one who knew she was a member of the demonic cult and that the provincial commander could not have known, so he asks for forgiveness. Two warriors dressed in red arrive, and one of them expresses disbelief, while the other remarks that the Imperial Tomb's treasure belonged to the demonic cult. Zhu Tiwan responds, clarifying that this is the Imperial Palace, and the non-aggression treaty does not grant the right to invade this place and cause such chaos. Yaon apologizes if he has displeased him, but he expresses his desire to resolve the misunderstanding. Zhu Tiwan dismisses the apology, stating that there is no need for it. Although he admits to knowing little about the Jianghu, he has heard that conflicts in that world are resolved through fair fights. He asks if the survival of the fittest was the principle at play here, but regardless of the reason, the invasion of the Imperial Palace and the harm caused to his subordinates and son are enough to consider the non-aggression treaty broken. He acknowledges the numerous rude acts committed against him and the Ming Empire, but states that he respects the laws of the Jianghu. He orders Juhua to rise, and Juhua complies, explaining that he is his personal guard. He adds that if Yaon can defeat him in a fight, he will consider this incident as though it never occurred. Juhua bows before Yaon, introducing himself as Lim Juhua, the Emperor's personal guard, and expresses his honor at the opportunity to fight the demonic cult leader. Yaon inquires what would happen if he fails to defeat the Imperial Guard, suggesting that in such a case, the non-aggression pact would be revised. Zhu Tiwan counters by addressing Taoist Master Qingsu, stating that the Orthodox Miram Alliance is swearing allegiance to the Great Ming Empire and, by extension, to him, regardless of the non-aggression pact. He asks pointedly if this is not the case. Qingsu is taken aback, realizing the sensitivity of the question, especially in the presence of the demonic cult leader. He reflects that had it not been for the demonic cultists, he might have been able to flatter the emperor to some degree. Yet, if he were to affirm the emperor's claim, it would essentially mean that the Orthodox Miram sects are submitting themselves to the government. Yaon interjects, stating that if he fails to defeat the Imperial Guard, the emperor's true intention would not simply be to revise the non-aggression pact. Instead, it would be to compel the heavenly demonic cult to become subjects of the Great Ming Empire. Qingsu reflects on why Yaon chose to interfere. If he had remained silent, it would have provided an opportunity to humiliate the Orthodox sect members. Could this decision have been influenced by their alliance? Despite the alliance, Qingsu knows they will inevitably become enemies again one day. Yet, the fact that the demonic cult leader intervened in a situation where there is seemingly nothing to gain leaves him puzzled. He contemplates how Yaon, who he thought relied solely on martial strength, also displays the magnanimity and generosity of a true hero. This level of insight amazes him. To think that the cult leader, once presumed to lack diplomatic acumen, not only possesses such skills but also understands the subtleties of reading the flow of events is astounding. Zhu Tiwan addresses the situation, stating that the noble cult had contributed significantly to the founding of their nation. As a gesture of gratitude, the founding emperor had signed the non-aggression pact, granting the cult its autonomy. However, he asserts that if matters continue in this way, the pact might be misconstrued as a guaranteed right. By causing such turmoil in the Imperial Palace under the assumption of protection from the non-aggression pact, the cult leader has overstepped. Zhu Tiwan emphasizes that such actions should come with a price. Yaon reflects that although Zhu Tiwan spoke at length with valid reasoning, his true intention becomes evident. He ultimately desires the heavenly demonic cult to swear allegiance should he lose to the emperor's personal guard. Recap observes the unfolding situation and considers how Zhu Tiwan seems to be manipulating this moment to undermine the historically inviolable relationship between the Miram and the government. Such cunning tactics do not escape his notice. Ran turns to Marikium, questioning if he truly accepts this man as the Grand Guardian and urging him to put an end to this absurd proposal at once. She points out that the Emperor's confidence in making such a proposition stems from his belief in an assured victory. She then asks Marikium whether he genuinely believes they can win this wager. A trace of indignation colors her voice as she continues, saying she has spent far too long in the Imperial Tomb to know the current state of affairs. However, during her time, there was not a single individual in the Muram who did not recognize the name Wave Sword Emperor Lim Juhua. Marikium pauses at her words, thinking back to the stories his ancestors shared with him in his youth. The name Wave Sword Emperor Lim Juhua resurfaces in his memory, a legendary sword emperor who had once illuminated the Muram like a comet. He recalls that Lim Juhua was an unparalleled master, renowned for his distinctive swordsmanship and his unmatched skill, which had secured his enduring reputation. He explains that a young man, barely 20, had once defeated the dominating Sword King, one of the 5 great masters of the era and the foremost swordsman. This feat had raised expectations that the young prodigy might one day ascend as the strongest master in Muram. As he steps closer to Juhua, he reflects on the astonishing story he heard. This swordsman had been active in Muram for only a year before vanishing entirely. Yet, the figure before him seems unchanged from the accounts of 90 years ago. He questions how this is possible, reasoning that regardless of his martial level or the number of body reconstructions he underwent, the man should logically be an elderly figure by now. The situation defies explanation. Zhu Tiwan contemplates the unfolding moment, recognizing that Yaon, under the watchful eyes of everyone present, has no choice but to accept his proposal. Before he can act further, Yaon launches a punch, sending Yu Chen hurtling through the air. Yu Chen groans in pain as his body feels the brunt of the strike. The lightning force from Yaon's attack ripples through the area, impacting other warriors and causing them to collapse under its power. Even Zhu Tiwan is struck by the residual force and nearly loses his footing, but Tisik and Yong Zhou rush to his side, catching him before he can fall. Tisik asks Zhu Tiwan if he is unharmed, while Zhu Tiwan, stunned, internally questions what on earth just transpired. Yaon pushes all bystanders back, clearing the battlefield with decisive force. He explains that the area had grown too cramped for his liking and that the action was necessary to ensure the Emperor's safety. He requests understanding for his actions, though his presence radiates an unyielding dominance. Juhua materializes behind him and commends his consideration, adding, however, a swift attack directed at him. Yaon intercepts the strike with his sword, countering the force effortlessly. Juhua declares his duty to protect his majesty, urging Yaon to focus solely on their match as he launches another attack. Yaon parries the blow with precision and immediately counters, evading Juhua's follow-up strike with agile movements. Juhua observes his opponent's remarkable speed, suspecting it to be the art of extreme swiftness. The two exchange fierce blows, each striving to overpower the other. Their ferocious strikes wreak havoc on their surroundings, shattering structures and unleashing waves of destruction. The intensity of their battle generates shockwaves, sending plumes of smoke spiraling into the air. Tisik watches in disbelief, questioning whether such a fight could even be between mortals. Ran, equally astonished, silently acknowledges the unimaginable reality of Yaon holding his ground against someone as formidable as Lim Juhua. Juhua eventually falters, falling to the ground, his voice trembling as he admits Yaon has exceeded his expectations. He reveals he has been waiting for a worthy challenger like him for a long time. His body undergoes a monstrous transformation, adopting a demonic form. He declares his delight at finally encountering a true match. Yaon, observing the transformation, as he suspected, has also consumed Killin's blood. Accepting the challenge, he resolves to reveal his full strength, transforming himself in response. Juhua smirked, acknowledging the reveal of a hidden ace, and expressed eagerness for the fight to escalate. Anything will suffice, he says, so long as he is entertained. As Juhua charges forward with renewed vigor, Yaon activates his own Killin's blood powers. The sheer force of the energy radiating from Yaon astonishes Juhua, who struggles to comprehend the overwhelming difference in magnitude. Yaon declares that their strength is finally equal, challenging Juhua to see how long he can endure this battle. The golden uniformed guards turn their attention to Yaon, questioning his unusual appearance as he activates his blood power and shatters the floor beneath them. Observing this, Yu Qing wonders what he is witnessing. Although undeniably powerful, he realizes it is merely an enhanced display of Sword Kai. Juhua contemplates Yao's intentions, doubting whether such a mere Sword Kai attack could harm him. He raises his defense as Yao strikes at a guard with his sword, grasping the weapon with immense force. Juhua counters with his wave sword technique, unleashing an attack that leaves the guards in shock. One of them recognizes the move and identifies it as the sword veil, the pinnacle of the wave sword technique. Yu Qing further discerns that the mystery of flower grafting and tree planting lies within the sword veil, enabling it to repel any force that collides with it. Yao retaliates by hurling his icy sword directly at Juhua's face, but Juhua narrowly evades the strike. A powerful blast erupts behind him, prompting his bewildered thoughts. He cannot fathom how, even with enhanced Sword Kai, Yao's attack could bypass the rotational force of the sword veil. Yao launches another attack, cutting his hand with precision. Juhua kneels, clutching his injured hand, his thoughts consumed with disbelief as he wonders how this could be possible. The phrase intangible sword echoes in his mind while Yao approaches him, channeling his blood power to strike. Juhua attempts to mount a counterattack, but Yao evades effortlessly and lands another blow, further injuring him with his blood power. Zhu Tiwan shouts in concern for Juhua as Yao steps even closer. Placing a finger on Juhua's forehead, he affirms his earlier statement before striking the wounded arm mercilessly. Yao coldly remarks that extending favors too often makes it easy to mistake them for entitlements. Ran observes the scene in disbelief, astonished that someone as experienced as Lim Juhua, who has lived for centuries, could be overpowered so thoroughly. Marakiam, witnessing the ease with which Juhua is subdued, marvels at Yao's martial growth, noting how his strength has reached an unimaginable level over time. Jingsu feels a deep sense of incredulity as he recalls the imposing aura of the protecting guards. The trembling in his body mirrors the fear he first felt upon encountering the Miram Alliance leader. Yet, to his utter shock, the demonic cult leader has cut Juhua down with such ease as though he were no more than a third-rate warrior. He contemplates whether his assumption is correct, concluding that it must undoubtedly be the intangible sword. In that case, he utters the words life and death realm. The guards nearby ask in disbelief if he truly means the life and death realm. Tisik reflects on the impossibility of such a realm's existence. He realizes the gravity of his actions, lamenting that in his attempt to manipulate the situation to his advantage, he has ultimately lost the protecting guard bestowed by his ancestors. Zhu Tiwan steps closer to Yao, who calmly asks if he is afraid of him. Tiwan, the emperor of the Great Ming Empire and ruler of the entire Central Plains, finds himself inwardly shaken as he acknowledges the truth. He has taken a step back in fear of a mere demonic cult leader. Struggling to maintain his composure, Tiwan demands, in an indignant tone, whether Yao intends to keep his distance. Yao responds with measured calm, suggesting that Tiwan may be misunderstanding something. Tiwan, his pride stung, retorts with a sharp question, demanding clarification. He accuses Yao of attempting to humiliate him at that moment, his voice laced with indignation and disbelief. Yao dismisses the accusation of humiliation, calmly asserting the words while Tiwan floats in the air, helpless under the pressure of Yao's lightning power. Yao Zhou swiftly advances, pointing his sword at Yao and hurling insults at him. He commands, demanding that Yao put the emperor down immediately. Marakiam steps forward, his own sword now poised at Yao Zhou's neck. He rebukes him for his rudeness to their leader, warning that if Yao Zhou wishes to see his head fall to the ground like that of the protecting guard, he need only continue his disrespect. Tisik, enraged, hurls insults at Marakiam and questions how he dares to treat the emperor in such a manner. In a fit of anger, he rushes forward to attack. However, Ran intervenes, using her flame power to block his strike. She warns him sharply, advising him not to attempt anything foolish if he values his life. Tisik, furious, demands to know why she has chosen to interfere. Meanwhile, Yao steps closer to Tiwan and tells the emperor that humiliation is something one can only claim when they are truly superior. Tisik, seeing his guards hesitate, demands urgently that they protect the emperor. He scoffs at the idea that only 5 demonic cultists could pose a threat and accuses them of standing idly by while Tiwan is humiliated. With renewed fury, he charges toward Yao, shouting that, at his command, this damned demonic cultist must release the emperor immediately. Yaon turns his gaze briefly toward Tisik before commenting on the noise. With a flick of his wrist, he unleashes his lightning power, striking all the guards. Tisik, too, is struck and falls to the ground, bewildered as he tries to comprehend what just happened. He reflects on the immense power Yaon possesses, realizing that he is being suppressed by nothing more than the man's true Kai. Tisik thinks to himself that such a force is not mere human, it's a monster. T1 questions how a mere human could wield such power. Yaon remarks that it is finally quiet, then turns his attention back to the conversation. He explains that the reason the founding emperor had signed the non-aggression pact was for his own protection, and he asks if T1 now understands the misunderstanding that had clouded his judgment. T1 begrudgingly admits to himself that Yaon, with his overwhelming power, could easily assassinate him at any moment. However, he refuses to accept defeat so easily. He questions Yaon, asking whether he has the confidence to take responsibility for his actions, reminding him that not all members of the cult possess his level of expertise. Yaon, unfazed, remarks that T1 is still acting recklessly, even when his life hangs in the balance. T1 snaps back, demanding that Yaon stop underestimating him. He asserts that Yaon must understand the consequences of killing him. T1's death would never pose a threat to Yaon's life. Without hesitation, Yaon strikes, swiftly cutting across T1's neck. Yongzhou lets out a scream in panic, calling for the emperor, while Prince Chen anxiously shouts for his father. Yaon stands over the fallen emperor, coldly stating that when a rotten tooth falls out, a new one will grow in its place. He then declares that the same applies to the emperor's position, hinting at the rise of a new leader, Prince Zhu Tijian. At this revelation, Prince Chen is struck with shock, his mind racing as he processes Yaon's words. He wonders aloud what Yaon is implying, realizing that the statement sounds unmistakably like a plot of treason. In his heart, Prince Chen is forced to confront the possibility that Tijian may have indeed allied himself with the demonic cult. Prince Chen's mind races as he contemplates the dire consequences of T1's death. If the emperor is assassinated and Tijian ascends to the throne, it would spell disaster for the entire empire. The worst-case scenario is now becoming painfully clear. He realizes that there is no force strong enough to oppose someone like Yaon. Even if all 17 leaders of the Miram Alliance joined forces, there would be no guarantee they could stop him. The weight of helplessness sinks in, and he begins to understand the true depth of Yaon's power. Reflecting on the wisdom of the founding emperor, he finally grasps why His Majesty had warned them never to break the non-aggression pact. Yaon, like Yuanshi Tianzan, is a true master, and he now understands the severity of the situation in a way he never could before. Prince Chen wonders why someone of Yaon's caliber, so capable of easily eliminating his enemies, would bother to leave Tijian on the throne. If Yaon kills the emperor, the result would most certainly be more bloodshed. This leads him to question whether Yaon seeks something else, something beyond simply seizing power. Yaon looks at Prince Chen with an unwavering gaze, asking what he is doing. Prince Chen pleads with him to stop, acknowledging that he understands his anger. He reminds him that, despite everything, Yaon had promised to put an end to the treasonous plot of the Six Blades Martial School. T1, overhearing this, thinks to himself that the Six Blades Martial School must be a new force seeking to join the non-aggression pact. Yaon responds, his tone unwavering, stating that he had indeed kept his promise. Prince Chen, however, continues to protest, asserting that even if Yaon had fulfilled his word, harming the emperor was never part of the agreement. Yaon remains resolute, explaining that the situation was much the same in the founding days. Despite their cult's crucial role in helping the Ming's founding emperor rise to power, the result was always the same, an emperor who sought to subjugate them. He adds that, as the founding emperor himself once warned, if favors are continually extended, they could be mistaken for entitlements. As such, the cult has decided to stop offering these favors. There is no longer any reason for them to continue supporting the Ming dynasty or the legacy of the founding emperor. Prince Chen begs Yaon to stop, insisting that His Majesty only made his earlier remarks because he was unaware of the full truth. Yaon, however, remains unmoved, apologizing coldly and stating that he is not in the mood to explain the truth to the emperor at this moment. He warns Prince Chen that if he doesn't step aside, he will be forced to make him. Prince Chen retorts that if Yaon intends to kill the emperor, then he should cut him down as well. Yaon, observing his stubbornness, mutters in disdain before using his lightning power to twist Prince Chen's leg backward. The sudden, intense pain causes Prince Chen to scream in agony. In sheer disbelief, Prince Chen gasps, asking what Yaon is doing. He reminds him that he had promised to help him ascend to the throne, urging him to reconsider. Yaon coldly replies that his promise no longer matters as long as he remains alive. T1 realizes he cannot predict Yaon's actions. The man before him is nothing like the orthodox members of the Miram sects. This is the true face of the demonic cult. Desperate, Prince Chen clutches his injured leg, his voice trembling as he begs for mercy. He pleads for Yaon to calm his anger and spare his father, the emperor. Yaon observes Prince Chen, who is still struggling to come to his senses, even after losing both of his legs. Prince Chen, in excruciating pain, begs Yaon to stop, but Yaon dismisses him, telling him to stop giving orders, and he breaks Prince Chen's other leg. The sound of bones snapping is followed by another agonized scream from the prince. Turning his attention to T1, Yaon raises his sword and points it directly at him. He promises to give Yaon whatever he wants, begging him to spare both his life and Prince Chen's. With desperation in his voice, he adds, pleading for mercy on his child's behalf. Tisik, horrified by his words, exclaims in disbelief, questioning how he could speak such a thing about his own majesty. Yaon responds that he understands that he will present his conditions at the Jianan Palace in 2 days. He orders T1 to ensure the royal seal is ready for the formal proceedings. With that, he casually throws the royal seal away from the emperor, adding that it's a pity his loyal guard has passed away, as it was an enjoyable match. Yaon then turns, preparing to leave. He commands his followers to move, and they obediently fall in line, trailing behind him as he walks away. T1 grimaces at the thought of crossing paths with Yaon again. He mutters to himself, vowing that he can never afford to underestimate that scoundrel again. He turns sharply, shouting at his guards to take his son to the physician immediately. The following day, in the quiet halls of Xingyang Palace, where Prince Zhu Tijium resides, a guard enters with the news. He informs Tijium that his lowly subordinate, Southern military officer Yon Namgun, has arrived and asks if his legs are in better condition. Prince Chen looks at the guard and replies with a wry smile, asking if they appear to be all right. He admits that it's the worst pain he has ever experienced in his life. He continues, remarking that thanks to his ruthless actions, he will be unable to walk for at least a month. He recalls Yaon's words, how stubborn he is, followed by the promise of some pain, and shakes his head, still processing the brutal encounter. The guard reassures him that, fortunately, there was no damage to the cartilage or ligaments. Prince Chen nods, reflecting on the physician's words. He acknowledges that, despite the pain, the bones are well connected, and will become even stronger over time. With a touch of sarcasm, he adds that he should thank Yaon for that. He realizes that, despite the intense pain and suffering, he has gained a significant advantage. His Majesty had been worried about him throughout the entire treatment. Prince Chen recalls the moment when the physician attempted to treat him, explaining that he would need to adjust his bones. As the physician worked on him, Zhu Tiwan's thoughts turned inward. He realized that this was the first time the emperor had called him a son. The acknowledgement of his position now seemed to hold weight. With the emperor's trust, he thought, this was far from a losing deal. Prince Chen mutters that, at this rate, he won't be able to move until the Dragon Boat Festival. The guard, who had been silently observing, reassures him, expressing relief that the worst did not come to pass. He adds, however, that his anxiety is far from over, as they still don't know where cult leader Chen has gone. The guard recalls the unexpected appearance of the emperor. It had thrown a wrench into their plans, and while he felt sympathy for the northern military officer, there was nothing they could do. Prince Chen wonders aloud how much better it would have been if Yaon had taken a more measured approach. Everything about Yaon seemed to be in his favor, but the cult leader's recklessness sometimes seemed impossible to predict. He turns to the southern military officer, asking if he agrees with this sentiment. But his words trail off when he notices a sudden change in the guard's expression. His face has darkened. Confused, Prince Chen asks what he means by next to him. The guard is caught off guard but can't answer in time. Just then, Yaon appears behind Prince Chen, his voice smooth and calm. He speaks as though considering the prince's words, saying that he had been trying to be considerate. But it seems the prince didn't think so after all. His Highness. Prince Chen becomes excited upon seeing him and asks cult leader Chen when he arrives. While thinking that this is an imperial family member's bedroom, he believes Yaon should have announced himself before appearing. Yaon responds that he has just arrived. Prince Chen clarifies that he meant it would have been better if Yaon had used less strength in his attacks. Yaon agrees and asks if the prince spoke to his imperial majesty as instructed. Prince Chen confirms, thinking that this is the reason he considers Yaon to be a real monster. He reflects on how, while overpowering both the eunuchs and his imperial majesty, Yaon had changed his plan and communicated through a distant whispering technique to tell him what to convey to the emperor. He wonders how Yaon managed to do all of that simultaneously. He then adds that he informed his imperial majesty that the supreme saber of the Six Martial Arts sect is an evil organization attempting to manipulate the Soul King as a puppet, and that Yaon saved the imperial family from them. He expresses confidence that his imperial majesty will understand him once some time has passed. Yaon responds that he does not really need the emperor's understanding, as his goal has already been achieved. He asks if he may pose a question. Prince Chen gestures for him to proceed, inquiring if Yaon intends to reveal what he is going to request from his imperial majesty. He also wonders if Yaon has already achieved his goal and what more he could possibly need. Yaon clarifies that, rather than a request, he plans to make an offer that the emperor will never be able to reject. The scene shifts to the promised day at Jianan Palace, where Yaon arrives at court and declares that if the emperor wishes to refuse, he simply needs to continue with the non-aggression treaty as it is. Zhu Tiwan reads the treaty, contemplating that he knows he could force the emperor to comply, yet Yaon is offering him the option to decline, a point he emphasizes as he stamps the document. The scene shifts 10 days after the incident at the Imperial Tomb in Henan Province to the base of the Miram Alliance, where the 17 masters are gathered in a meeting room. One person asks what is meant by the demonic cult leader, questioning how such an individual could be at the Imperial Palace. Another person responds that they do not know the details, but it seems that Prince Chen is somehow involved. Sati laughs and asks how the supreme saber of the Six Martial Arts sect was able to use the Soul King to infiltrate the Imperial Palace. Great Master Gakyo notes that this would indicate that the supreme saber of the Six Martial Arts sect has significant influence and is potentially capable of plunging Zhonghu into great chaos. Peng Chengguan adds that it is not just the Miram Alliance's status that is at risk. He expresses uncertainty over whether he should be grateful to the demonic cult leader, given the circumstances. Peng Guyu remarks that he has always been so optimistic about the demonic cult leader after his visit to the cult. Chengguan responds that he remains as hostile as ever, but he respects how the demonic cult leader is striving to fulfill his duties as a martial artist. Peng Guyu asks what Chengguan means by that, wondering if he is being sarcastic. Meanwhile, Jingxu taps his hand on the table in anger and states that the report is not over yet. Li Mok observes that it seems Chengxu has not reached the main point and asks everyone to quiet down, urging Chengxu to finish what he is saying. Once the room quiets, Chengxu continues, and everyone is shocked to learn that the emperor's personal guard, Lim Juhua, was one of the 5 great martial artists from 9 decades ago. They are even more stunned to hear that he was also the Maelstrom Sword Emperor. However, they are left in greater disbelief when Chengxu reveals the next piece of information. Chengxu bows and states that the demonic cult leader killed the Maelstrom Sword Emperor in a very one-sided fight, mocking him throughout. A person asks how that is possible, questioning how one of the 5 great martial artists could lose to a weakling like the demonic cult leader. The Lord of Heaven then asks if the Maelstrom Sword Emperor was not at least at the Mystic Realm, implying that this would mean he was on par with the head of the Miram Alliance. Chengguan responds, addressing the primeval Lord of Heaven respectfully, and asserts that the demonic cult leader Yaon was certainly not someone capable of defeating one of the 5 great martial artists. He then asks if the Lord is sure he isn't mistaken. The Lord of Heaven replies that he is certain, having witnessed countless members of the demonic cult, but Yaon is different. Chengguan asks what he means, stating that, as the leader, it makes sense that Chen would be different. The Lord responds that he is not referring to just his martial arts. Chengxu adds that Chengguan would understand if he had seen him, and he speculates that he has transcended humanity. Chengxu agrees, affirming that Demon God is indeed a fitting title for him. Sati asks if Chengxu truly means Demon God. He suggests that Chengsu seems confused due to the chaos he has endured and offers him some tea to calm down. Chengsu grows irritated and asks why he won't be taken seriously, insisting that the demonic cult leader pierced through the personal guard's absolute barrier with the formless sword. He further claims that he was able to take down more than 300 expert martial artists using only his true energy. Limak tells him to wait and asks if Chengsu just mentioned the formless sword, questioning if he understands what that implies. Chengsu confirms, stating that the demonic cult leader is a martial artist at the life and death realm. Limak, puzzled, wonders what the life and death realm is. Another person laughs, dismissing it as nonsense, while his friend remarks that he thought such things were just stories. Sati then asks Chengsu if he didn't just claim to have seen him recently, noting that there's no way someone could improve so dramatically in such a short period of time. Chengsu, growing frustrated, asks if Sati refuses to believe him. Limak, still skeptical, thinks about the life and death realm. He can't believe it, but if Chengsu is right, the power balance of the entire Jianghu would be in grave danger. Suddenly, a guard bursts through the door and announces that the Alliance head has received an urgent message from the supervisor. The Imperial Palace declared that they would change the national religion of the Ming Empire to the Heavenly Demon Divine Cult. Limak, stunned, asks what that means. At the Jianan Palace of the Great Ming Empire, two individuals bow before T1. Tisik pleads with him to reconsider, while Yu Cheng urges him to revoke the decision, expressing concern over the choice to align with the demonic cult. He points out that there are many other great religions, questioning why it had to be the demonic cult. He continues, asserting that the people of the demonic cult, especially their leader, Chen Yaon, could never align their minds with theirs. T1 clenches his fist and sternly reminds them never to mention what happened in the Imperial Tomb. Yu Cheng, acknowledging his transgression, bows deeply, apologizing for his grave sin. T1, however, interrupts, saying, "Enough." Yu Cheng expresses gratitude for his mercy, to which the latter then asks, "What do you think of his enemy's enemies?" Tisik apologizes for speaking out of turn, but he believes that the enemy of their enemy is their ally. T1 responds that this was precisely what the cult leader Yaon had said to him. He adds that the supreme saber of the six martial arts sect is an enemy they must eliminate. T1 recalls Yaon's words, asking him what he would do about his enemy's enemies. He thinks, however, that there is a difference between Yaon's question and his own, as Yaon asked what he would do about them, not what others would do. Tisik, speaking up, responds that by that logic, the Muram Alliance is also an enemy of the supreme saber of the six martial arts sect. He further argues that the Muram Alliance has been friendly toward them. But what have they done in return? He recalls how one of the 17 masters merely watched as he was shamed while his subordinates, who were weaker than him, tried to intervene on his behalf. Before Tisik can continue, T1 interrupts, stating that the supreme saber of the six martial arts sect is a terrifying enemy. They are after the Great Ming Empire, and if the Muram Alliance will not offer help, despite the connection they share, then what reason is there not to change the Empire's religion? Tisik realizes this is a dire situation, having underestimated His Imperial Majesty's temper. He knows that T1 has always chosen what benefits him in politics, but even so, aligning with those people, the outlaws feels like a step too far. T1, reflecting on the situation, thinks that he had intended to distance himself completely from Jianghu with this decision. But there is no way the supreme saber of the six martial arts sect would simply give up. After all, they had even planted a spy in the Imperial Palace. He acknowledges that Yaon's martial power surpasses his imagination, and his intelligence is equally formidable. Yaon was clever enough to completely thwart the plans of his enemies, taking control of a force by manipulating another. T1 then speaks, explaining that the reason he has chosen the Heavenly Demon Divine Cult as the national religion is to eliminate the supreme saber of the six martial arts sect. He adds that if Tisik cannot come up with a better plan than this, he will not be reversing his decision. Yu Cheng thinks that it seems unlikely they will be able to persuade him today, though he recognizes that T1 has given them an opportunity. Tisik, on the other hand, believes they simply need to come up with a better solution. The scene shifts to the headquarters of the Orthodox Muram Alliance in Henan Province, where Chengsu explains that, due to the announcement of the Emperor's intention to change the official religion, the 17 masters have been holding a meeting for 3 days. He says that, for them, who had planned to ally with the Heavenly Demon Divine cult in order to take down the supreme saber of the Six Martial Arts sect. This development was entirely unexpected. Chung-Soo adds that another topic of discussion has been the martial power of Yaon. The expert martial artists who were said to have mastered the formless sword are all very old, making it hard to believe that someone as young as Yaon could reach such a high level of martial arts. Amidst the confusion, a guest from the Imperial Palace arrives. Sadie asks if the information is true, and Miju confirms, stating that he was informed the Emperor would be willing to reverse his decision if a better solution is proposed. Lee-Mak reflects for a moment, thinking that despite the Emperor's disgraceful position, Ching-Su did nothing but watch. Pang Guyu considers the situation and concludes that the Emperor's disappointment in them is understandable. Perhaps the Kangtong sect is no longer as powerful as it once was. Chung-Su addresses Pang Guyu, saying that despite all his efforts to warn them about the power of cult leader Yaon, if they still refuse to believe him, there is nothing more he can do. He taps the table in frustration and declares that it is regrettable they have reached this point, adding that he will excuse himself to take responsibility. Pang Guyu, visibly angered, questions whether Chung-Su feels any guilt. He reminds him that he had offered numerous times to help prevent such a catastrophe, yet it has come to this. He accuses Ching-Su of ruining everything and is now trying to walk away. Pang Guyu demands to know if Ching-Su truly feels remorse, stating that no excuse could absolve him of his responsibility. Ching-Su admits that he is right, acknowledging he has no excuse and accepting that this situation resulted from his own powerlessness. He adds that even if he had intervened earlier, the outcome would not have changed, displaying his clenched fist in anger as he declares his resolve. He swears on his arm, prompting Pang Guyu to question the meaning of such a declaration and whether he is serious. Ching-Su asserts that a man's word is his bond and insists that he should not interfere. Pang Guyu replies with determination, agreeing to step back but promising to show what he is capable of. He turns to the Alliance head and requests to be sent to the Imperial Palace, stating that he will meet with His Imperial Majesty and personally persuade him to change his mind. Confidently, he vows to resolve the situation. Lee-Mak considers this turn of events, realizing that no one else seemed willing to take action. He asks Pang Guyu if he is certain about this course of action. He reflects that he has never had an opportunity to prove himself deserving of his position, having inherited it from his father. Seeing this as his chance, he confidently assures Lee-Mak he will leave the matter in his hands. At that moment, Yeon Buso arrives, greeting Lee-Mak and volunteering to accompany Pang Guyu. Lee-Mak muses about the Murim Alliance head, who had taken in 3 orphans as his children, Kang So-ah, Mo Yu-ju, and Yeon Buso. Among them, he stood out as exceptionally talented in martial arts. He states that 7 of the 17 masters had co-raised him and wonders if his interest in this mission stems from the demonic cult leader. Reflecting further, he recalls how he was often compared to the former demonic cult leader as well. He considers how having a rival can serve as a powerful motivator for growth. Although the mission might be dangerous, he sees it as an excellent opportunity to gain experience and approves, saying they may proceed as they wish. Buso expresses his gratitude, while Pang Guyu remarks on the honor of having him join the mission. Buso humbly acknowledges that he is not yet skilled enough, but assures Pang Guyu of his desire to contribute. Pang Guyu, in turn, comments on Buso's presence, jesting that Master Ching-Su should now be worried about his arm. He reflects on the genius who managed to achieve immense power within just 3 months and thinks this mission will be much easier than expected. Considering temperaments, he muses that Pang Yual might have been a better fit for the role of a master. Ching-Su, observing the exchange, silently laments that it was Pang Guyu himself who ignored his warnings about the demonic cult leader. He reflects that the cult leader shows no mercy and doubts Pang Guyu will survive for the sake of the Alliance. Despite this, he admits he is curious to see the expression on his face upon his return. 3 days later, at the south gate of the Dragon Palace within the Great Ming Empire's imperial grounds, Miju arrives and presents his badge. He identifies himself as a representative of the Murim Alliance and instructs the guards to arrange entry passes promptly. The guards bow respectfully and agree to his request. Miju turns to Pang Guyu and apologizes, explaining that they will need to wait for a short while. Pang Guyu reassures him, saying it is no issue and expressing his hope that he will not need to intervene unnecessarily. Sati, standing nearby, comments that if Great Master Gakyeon were present, he might have proposed Buddhism as an alternative to the heavenly demon divine cult. He adds that for now, they must do their best with the resources they have. Peng Guyu nods and states that he has his own tasks to handle and suggests they discuss further once they have met His Imperial Majesty. He notes that since the temples have not yet been closed, persuading the emperor might not be overly challenging. As for himself, he remarks that it might be disappointing that the demonic cult leader is not present. Buso scratches his head with a sheepish laugh, agreeing that it is indeed disappointing. He reflects internally that it seems fate did not align for him to face the leader. Buso admits he was curious about the leader's strength, especially after hearing he praise him so highly. Considering that the emperor's personal guard's body has yet to be cremated, he muses that he might be able to examine the injuries to glean some insight. He reflects that it was only a few months ago when he first heard that the demonic cult leader had reached the evolutionary realm, yet now, the leader has advanced enough to wield the formless sword. He acknowledges, however, that one thing is certain: the leader has grown significantly stronger. How fascinating, he muses, as he concludes that perhaps the heavens are unwilling for the orthodox Miram and himself to thrive. Yon Buso recalls how he had faced numerous expert martial artists since stepping into the Janghu, yet he could not conceal his disappointment. None of his peers were skilled enough to match him, leaving him without a true rival. Presently, he considers how only a handful of the 17 masters are capable of defeating him in a duel. That realization struck him with clarity. He was indeed a prodigy. If he truly is his destined rival, he is confident that the heavens will ensure their paths cross again, even if one tries to avoid the other and clenches his fist at the thought. A guard suddenly approaches Miju in haste, visibly agitated. Miju inquires if he has brought the entry passes. The guard hands over the documents, replying that they are ready, but his tone suggests an issue. Miju instructs him to calm down and explain. The guard reveals that with the arrival of the demonic cult disciples earlier this morning, the shutdown of the temples has been expedited. The group is stunned by the news, expressing their disbelief and confusion, while Miju urges them to know that there is no time to waste, and they must meet His Imperial Majesty immediately. Sati voices his concern and announces that he will attempt to prevent the closure of the Law Hall. Without hesitation, Miju calls for action, prompting Peng and Buso to follow him as they sprint toward their destination. Sati, meanwhile, dashes in another direction to fulfill his task. Buso contemplates the implications, wondering if this means the demonic cult leader has also returned. The scene transitions to a Taoist temple located southeast of the Dragon Palace, specifically within the Three Purities Hall of the main temple. There, a figure clad in brown robes launches an assault on the guards. One of the guards exclaims that the intruders are wicked members of the demonic cult. He demands that they leave the sacred Taoist temple immediately, urging them to stop their desecration. The brown-robed attacker retorts with disdain, striking the guard and sending him flying. He then questions the accusation, asking who is truly evil in this scenario. With a resolute tone, he declares that they are constructing their temple as ordered and insists that the guards are the ones in the wrong. The guard, defiant despite his injuries, counters, asking if the man truly believes he can act as he pleases. He warns that emissaries of the Miram Alliance are present and repeats his accusation, branding the attacker as evil once again. Hyobong unleashes his flaming power, sending a wave of fire toward the guards as he declares that their interference is becoming annoying. One of the guards exclaims in fear and disbelief, questioning what kind of dark. Another guard joins in, branding Hyobong a demon. With a fiery glare, Hyobong retorts that he will burn anyone who dares to stand in their way. He warns them to step aside while he is still feeling generous, his flames crackling ominously as he hurls another attack at the guards. Before further destruction can unfold, the sect leader arrives with his warriors, their presence commanding immediate attention. Hyobong turns to look at him. The sect leader expresses relief that they managed to arrive on time. His voice carries a quiet authority, making it clear that crossing such lines will not be tolerated. Hyobong narrows his eyes at the sect leader and asks who he is and what line he refers to when mentioning an alliance. The sect leader observes him closely, sensing an unfamiliar yet potent energy radiating from the young man. Internally, he is taken aback, thinking how strange it is for someone who appears no older than 20 to exude such overwhelming power. He is convinced that this person is a true grandmaster. For a fleeting moment, he even wonders if this could be the demonic cult leader himself. The thought makes sense, especially considering Taoist Master Ching-Su's earlier misconceptions. However, the sect leader quickly dismisses the idea that he could be a divine master in the life and death realm. The sect leader introduces himself, stating that he is Jiangxian, the Hengxian sect leader. He firmly requests that Heobong take his cult members and vacate the Taoist temple immediately. Heobong tilts his head slightly and asks what the sect leader is suddenly implying. He responds with an edge to his voice, accusing Heobong of employing underhanded tactics and reminding him that this territory belongs to the Orthodox sects. He insists that Heobong must not violate the alliance's rules. Heobong scoffs, asking when the imperial palace has become the Orthodox sect's territory. Jiangxian, resolute in his stance, tightens his grip on his weapon and assesses the situation. He takes a step forward and issues a final warning, declaring that he has already cautioned Heobong to leave. The sect leader claims he is the one who requested punishment, urging others not to regret this. Yaon appears behind him, questioning regret for what. The sect leader, startled by Yaon's sudden presence, demands to know which scoundrel dares to interfere. Pointing his sword at Yaon, he prepares to strike, but Yaon unleashes his lightning, shattering the sect leader's sword effortlessly. Without hesitation, Yaon grabs the sect leader by the neck, lifting him high into the air. Yaon remarks that the sect leader had swung his sword first and observed his opponent's lack of protective enhanced Kai, inwardly mocking the absurdity of his inner Kai's weakness. Holding him aloft, Yaon mockingly declares his loyalty, addressing the sect leader as his lordship and chanting, "Long live, long live." Sati, witnessing this scene, feels a wave of confusion and dread. He wonders if Yaon might be the demonic cult leader. Despite the gravity of the situation, Sati points his sword at Yaon, addressing him as sect leader, but his thoughts betray his fear. He realizes that even though Chen is merely gripping the sect leader by the neck, Sati himself is completely paralyzed. He mutters that at this rate, their master will be in danger. Another subordinate reassures Sati, suggesting they attack together using the harmonious joint sword technique. At the given signal, they charge forward, coordinating their movements. Both strike at Yaon simultaneously, their swords aimed with precision and force. The junior disciple demands that his master be released, but Sati joins in by hurling insults at Yaon. Suddenly, Merecium intervenes, appearing swiftly to deliver a powerful kick that sends the junior flying. Without pausing, Merecium rushes toward Sati. Wang Hule attempts to counter Merecium's advance, attacking and exclaiming his outrage, stating how dare someone address the heaven of their cult so rudely. A nearby warrior observes the scene in awe, thinking that the impact from just a single blow demonstrates the presence of truly frightening experts. Heobong calls out to Wang Hule with excitement, prompting Wang Hule to respond, acknowledging his presence. Wang Hule reflects that it has been a while and notes how Heobong seems to have enjoyed the privilege of following their lordship alone. However, Wang Hule's thoughts turn uneasy as he recalls his pride in being the only one among the 6 swords to achieve the rank of a true grandmaster. The energy Heobong emits now surpasses his own, causing him to reevaluate. As Heobong kneels and activates his powers, he contemplates his progress. He considers the possibility that if his martial prowess has developed to match his energy, he might challenge for the position of the first sword in the 6 swords ranking battle. Meanwhile, Yaon unleashes his lightning skill to strike at the sect leader. The sect leader counters with an indirect technique, stating that Yaon is inviting trouble with his reckless assault. Yaon blocks his attack and disperses it effortlessly. The sect leader, stunned by the ease with which Yaon nullified the indirect hit, thinks that it is impossible. He realizes that Yaon has just dispelled an attack that contained his full power, confirming the truth of what the Taoist master had said. Yaon comments on the unpleasant nature of the nun and then tightens his grip on the sect leader's neck again. The sect leader pleads for mercy, revealing that the nun is Venerable Jiangxian from the Miram Alliance and begs to be released so they can speak. In response, Yaon swiftly cuts off the sect leader's arm. The sect leader screams in agony as the pain overwhelms him. Yaon then tosses him aside, stating that out of respect for the alliance, he will leave him with only one arm. 2 nuns, witnessing the scene, are filled with fear. They cannot believe how easily Yaon has severed their sect leader's arm, a leader known as the Sword Empress. Yaon commands that all of them be suppressed, ordering that anyone who resists be cut down. His warriors acknowledge the command and prepare to act. The scene shifts to Jianan Palace in the Great Hall, where a person is kneeling, clearly weakened by the effects of Yaon's lightning skill. They express their inability to straighten their knees. Peng Guyu, observing this, is taken aback. He had wondered if the individual had reached the level of origination, but now it is clear that they have truly become a peak enlightened grandmaster by the age of 30. He thinks that perhaps the strongest expert in the world will be born during his era. He reflects that it is enough now and requests that the true Kai be withdrawn. He then turns to Buso, asking if he saw that display. Buso confirms that the martial prowess displayed belongs to young Master Yon, who will undoubtedly become one of the 5 strongest in Muram. Limak repeats the words 5 strongest, his voice filled with disbelief. Meanwhile, Peng Guyu, still processing the implications, realizes that it is crucial to demonstrate to His Majesty that they possess more power than the demonic cult in order to protect the imperial family. He reassures the alliance leader, thinking that young Master Buso has successfully fulfilled his role. With a snap of his fingers, he feels a sudden shift in the atmosphere and instinctively looks around. Peng Guyu wonders who these people are and ponders whether they could be the ones he suspects. Limak, noticing their presence, states that there are 300 individuals in total who had been brought to their knees by a single gesture from the demonic cult leader. He then adds that the one who identified himself as Yon Buso should be given another chance to prove his worth. Buso thinks that if he heard correctly, 300 people certainly, the Peng Patriarch himself could defeat all of them. But it is an entirely different challenge to force them to kneel using only true energy. He reflects that even if he exerted his full effort, he could perhaps manage to subdue 100 for maybe half an hour. It seems impossible to compel 300 people to kneel with just a flick of the hand. Limak, noticing Buso's hesitation, asks if he is unable to do it. Buso responds, stating that His Majesty is exaggerating, suggesting that the true intent is merely for him to demonstrate his skill. He acknowledges that rumors tend to be exaggerated, but he now realizes that being asked to prove himself in front of Limak shows just how significant the demonic cult leader truly is as his rival. Buso affirms that, of course, he is capable of performing such a feat. However, he insists that it would be disrespectful to both himself and Limak to attempt to mimic the demonic cult leader's skill. Instead, he offers to show something different. Limak, intrigued, asks what Buso means by something else. In response, Buso taps into his power, causing all the warriors' swords to float into the air. The onlookers are stunned and question what has happened to their swords. Limak, observing the phenomenon, inquires if this is Kai's sword control, but then wonders aloud if it truly is Kai's sword control. Tisik comments that the ability demonstrated is an extremely advanced skill, one that could only be mastered by perhaps the 5 great martial artists of the Jianghu. Limak, intrigued, asks what Tisik means by the 5 and whether the demonic cult leader is also one of them. Tisik replies that the current demonic cult leader is not one of the 5, but he has heard that the former leader was. Limak acknowledges this, contemplating the information. He reflects on what he has heard about the 5 great martial artists, who are said to be exceptionally powerful, and wonders just how strong the demonic cult leader truly is. He muses that someone capable of becoming one of the 5 great martial artists would be an extraordinary individual. He thinks that even the alliance leader himself would not be enough to prove his worth against such a figure. However, Limak is struck by the fact that a young man like Buso has been sent in place of the alliance leader, and he wonders if Buso will be able to maintain his composure when faced with Yaon. He resolves that with just this one technique, he will alter His Majesty's perception. As he enhances his power, his control over the swords intensifies, making them swirl more forcefully in the air. He declares that he can defend himself against all of the eunuch's attacks without stepping outside of the circle. Limak remarks that it should be interesting as the warriors rush to attack Buso. One of them commands the others to attack, while another instructs them to push Buso out of the circle. Buso responds swiftly, countering their attack with his sword and creating a whirlwind that strikes them all. One of the guards is astonished, asking what is causing the wind. Buso then uses the peach blossom heaven reflection technique, throwing all the guards away with a single motion. Limak is shocked by the display of power. One of the guards comments on the impressive force of true energy, while another expresses disbelief, questioning how someone could possess such skill. Buso, pleased with the outcome, thinks that he has succeeded and asks how it looks. Limak, visibly annoyed, demands to know if that is all Buso can do. Meanwhile, Penguyu, observing the scene, wonders why Limak appears so disappointed. He reflects that such a display of power should have been impressive. So why does Limak seem unmoved? He questions whether Buso truly believes that such a feat would be impossible for someone who is not worthy of being one of the 5 great martial artists. Limak, however, assures Buso that he is aware of the 5 great martial artists of the Jianghu and acknowledges that Buso's skill is indeed impressive. Buso apologizes and asks if it is possible for him to defeat his father within 3 moves. He expresses his regret, thinking that although he may be in the mystic realm, his father has reached the pinnacle of blade techniques, making it impossible to accomplish. Limak dismisses the question, stating that he will not change his mind and excusing Buso from further discussion. Meanwhile, Penguyu, observing the situation, realizes that if things continue this way, the heavenly demon divine cult might indeed become their official religion and kneel. Penguyu voices his understanding of Limak's disappointment. But before the conversation can continue, a guard bursts into the court, announcing the arrival of a Taoist monk. Limak, impatient, asks what the problem is. The guard informs him that the Taoist monk has arrived and bows before the throne. Limak is already addressing someone else and asking what all the commotion is about. The guard, in a panic, urging him to recognize the significance of the situation. He reminds Limak that the great Ming Empire has followed the ways of Tao for so long and questions how it could allow the evil demonic cult leader and his subordinates to destroy their temples. Buso considers the arrival of the demonic cult leader and remarks to Master Peng that things are about to become much simpler. Penguyu, confused, asks what he means by that. Buso declares his intent to confront the demonic cult leader directly and put an end to the chaos. Limak, unfazed, reiterates that he will not change his decision and dismisses Buso, stating that if he understands, he is excused. Buso acknowledges the dismissal, but another guard urgently pleads with Limak to reconsider his stance. Limak observes their departure and notes that they are leaving as though they have conceded, but their true intentions are clear. The glint in Buso's eyes the moment the demonic cult leader was mentioned betrayed his resolve. Limak reflects that arrogance can lead to one's downfall and silently laments his failed attempt to save the 2 of them from such a fate. Outside the court, Buso and Penguyu make their way forward, joined by others running alongside them. Buso turns to Miju, asking if he, too, has encountered the demonic cult leader. Miju responds, admitting that he didn't merely see him. He explains that the overwhelming presence he felt that day defies description. Miju states he is no ordinary human, but a monster, no, the demon god himself. Buso recalls Chungsu's words, acknowledging the danger but unable to suppress his excitement. Penguyu notices a building in the distance, identifying it as the location where the Hengshan sex members are being held. He informs Buso of his intention to attack first, thinking this is finally his opportunity. Drawing his sword, Penguyu rallies the warriors of the Peng clan, urging them to unsheathe their blades and prepare to rescue their brothers and sisters. As they prepare to advance, a black dragon suddenly appears. Buso freezes, his mind racing as he tries to comprehend the terrifying aura. He wonders whether such a presence could truly belong to a human, and calls out to Penguyu to wait. However, Penguyu charges forward, undeterred, only to be engulfed by the oppressive blood aura within the building. In an instant, Yaun strikes him down, delivering a fatal blow. As Penguyu collapses lifelessly to the ground, Yaun places his foot on his head. With cold disdain, he remarks that quite a few people seem eager to lose their arms today, holding the severed arm with a chilling indifference. Penguyu reflects on the legacy of the Hebei Peng clan, a prestigious family ranked among the top 3 in blade techniques. He recalls Peng Nual, his half-brother and the clan's patriarch. As one of the top 5 blades in the Orthodox Murim alliance, Penguyu harbors ambitions to become a central figure within the alliance. However, he acknowledges the challenges posed by the supreme saber of the 6 martial arts sect, whose power is formidable and shrouded in mystery. The lack of information about their techniques and overwhelming strength has made direct confrontation nearly impossible. Penguyu considers the danger posed by the supreme saber of the 6 martial arts sect, recognizing them as a significant threat. He recalls how circumstances shifted when the heavenly demon divine cult was declared the official religion of the Great Ming Empire. Qingsu, instrumental in this development, stepped down from his position as the 12th seat of the cult. Peng Guyu muses that while Qingsu's withdrawal opens opportunities for others to rise within the ranks, it is not enough for him. To achieve his goals, he must ascend higher and faster within the alliance's hierarchy. He wonders which among them is the demonic cult leader as he enters the palace and rushes to attack Qin. Convinced it must be him, he notes the distinct aura surrounding Qin and decides to leave him for Yon Buso to handle. However, noticing no discernible reaction from Qin, he resolves to strike first. Attempting a sneak attack from behind, he lunges at Qin, only for Qin to vanish and reappear behind him in an instant, seizing his hand with an iron grip. Peng Guyu realizes that Qin must be employing the swift clone technique. Before he can react, Qin severs his arm effortlessly and hurls him aside with a surge of lightning power. Staggering, Peng Guyu reels from the overwhelming true energy radiating from Qin, questioning who this monstrous figure truly is. Turning back toward him, his thoughts race as the realization dawns. This man is the demonic cult leader. He desperately aims to land a kick, but Qin intercepts him with ease, smashing his face into the ground. Qin remarks that many seem eager to lose their arms today. Buso and the other warriors arrive at the scene. Miju, incensed, confronts Yaon, demanding an explanation for his audacity, but Buso intervenes, urging him to stop and observe their surroundings. His gaze shifts to the sect leader, who lies injured nearby, supported by two nuns. Buso breathes a sigh of relief, thinking how fortunate it is that they are both still alive despite the chaos. Marikium arrives behind them, and Buso immediately senses his imposing presence. Buso identifies him and remarks that the man is none other than the Dark King. A nearby guard, upon seeing Marikium, acknowledges that their chances of escaping unscathed are slim. Miju, equally stunned, quickly recognizes Marikium's identity and is certain it must be him. The sheer intensity of his aura is overwhelming and entirely incongruous with his apparent age. Miju, unable to gauge his martial level, feels an immediate urge to challenge him but restrains himself, knowing this is not the time. Buso steps forward and introduces himself with respect, addressing Marikium as the demonic cult leader. He states that he is Yon Buso, the eldest son of the Miram Alliance leader and the captain of the White Ring Squad. Hyobong, observing the exchange, silently reflects on Buso's reputation. He considers that if Buso truly is the new candidate for the title of one of the top 5 martial artists in Zhonghu, the Miram Alliance must have been deeply anxious to send him here. Hyobong recalls the days when Buso, the son of the righteous North Sword, was often compared to others of legendary lineage. Yaon remarks that it is good to know Buso represents the Miram Alliance at this moment, stepping closer as he speaks. Buso responds that one could say so. Yaon asks if Buso is prepared to face the consequences of attacking them and immediately activates his oppressive blood aura. Peng Guyu is feeling the overwhelming pressure and panics. He thinks to himself that this aura is far too powerful and that he cannot let Buso engage in such a battle. With urgency, he warns Buso not to fight, calling it sheer folly to challenge Yaon and insisting that they must abandon their pursuit of the official religion. Buso apologizes on behalf of the alliance. Yaon notes inwardly that Buso initially appeared ready to charge at him, but now seems unwilling to engage. Buso elaborates, explaining that from the Miram Alliance's perspective, it felt as though the official religion title had been taken from them. As a result, they had no choice but to make every effort to sway the Imperial Majesty's decision. Buso admits that, in hindsight, he believes he bears some of the responsibility for the conflict. Yaon asks him to clarify what he means. Buso asks if they are not supposed to be allies against a common enemy and states that he assumes Yaon would not want the alliance to fracture over this incident. He continues by offering to step back and relinquish their claim to the national religion position, requesting that Yaon release the Hengshan sect's disciples and the 2 masters. Peng Guyu, struggling to rise, observes this with surprise, thinking he expects Buso to retreat in fear, but this approach is unexpectedly shrewd. He reflects that this is likely the best course of action they can take for now, reasoning that the demonic cult leader may find it difficult to refuse since Buso has offered to concede on the religion issue. The sect leader also watches Buso's actions and silently acknowledges that his proposal is well calculated. Buso formally bows and repeats his request to Yaon. However, Yaon dismisses the notion with a sharp response. He remarks that Buso is misunderstanding the situation, stating that the matter of religion is not his to give up on. Yaon asks who granted Buso the authority to make such a concession and challenges him further, questioning if he refrained from attacking simply because he failed to sway the emperor's decision. Yaon unsheathes his sword and remarks that Buso initiated the attack. Upon realizing his disadvantage, Yaon now wants to feign consideration. He expresses his disappointment, stating that he is not a benevolent man and that he will only be satisfied once he claims his arm. Buso feels a wave of fear, sweat forming on his brow, as he hears the threat. He mutters that it is a terrible thing to say and inwardly laments that Yaon is unwilling to negotiate. He feels a pang of guilt for the two masters and reflects that his intention was to prevent any casualties by avoiding a fight. However, he realizes they have no other choice. Resolving himself, Buso draws his sword and admits that, in truth, he feels relief. He assumes that Yaon's reaction stems from viewing him as a genuine rival. With confidence, he declares that he, too, is regarded as a genius within the Orthodox sects. Before he can finish his thought, Yaon strikes, his movements blindingly fast. In an instant, Buso's arm is severed. He reels in shock, realizing that he could not even perceive the attack. He thinks Yaon was directly in front of him, yet he failed to anticipate the strike. The speed and precision are beyond anything he imagined, leaving him grappling with the realization of Yaon's overwhelming strength. Yaon calmly places his foot on Buso's severed arm, pressing down with deliberate force. He declares that he has obtained what he desires and coldly asks if Buso wishes to continue the fight. Buso uses his skill to attack Yaon, creating a whirlwind around him. He thinks that even if Chin moves as fast as a ghost, he will not be able to escape this attack. Wang Huel asks in confusion what exactly is happening, while Hyobong calls out worriedly, "Demon Lord." A guard warns everyone to step back, stating that they will be swept away if they remain too close, as the heavy winds uproot trees from the ground. Buso believes he will strike Yaon down and send swords toward him, but Yaon stands within the whirlwind, using his lightning power to create a shield that blocks the swords. Buso wonders how Chin is able to stop the attack. If Yaon's true energy has blocked it, he decides to increase his own true energy. Yaon scoffs, calling the situation ridiculous, while Nano Machine reports that infiltration is in progress and the targeting was successful. Yaon activates his powers, sending waves of lightning to attack Buso. Buso, in disbelief, wonders what is happening, thinking it impossible, as Yaon returns all the swords toward him. Sati and Panguyu call out to Buso worriedly while other warriors observe him, thinking that he has taken control of Buso's Kai sword technique despite being in the mystic realm. They believe it is true. They are no match for him. That man truly is the demon god. They wonder if he intends to finish them off when Buso declares that the alliance is over and orders them to be killed. Yaon asks why he would kill them, while Buso inquires what Yaon means by that. Yaon replies that Buso is a valuable hostage, one he can use whenever he wants. Buso wonders what Yaon is trying to achieve. Yaon asks if Buso wishes to continue, while Panguyu urges Buso to put down his weapons. Although it may be shameless, they need to stay alive. A guard orders the weapons to be dropped, and all the guards throw their swords to the ground. Buso observes the scene, thinking it resembles an adult fighting a child, even though Buso is in the mystic realm. He wonders if the power gaps between the martial realms grow larger the higher one ascends, realizing how terrifying that would be. He thinks that it takes decades of dedication to reach enlightenment as a supreme peak martial artist, yet he has improved this much in just a few months. He wonders, even if they are fortunate enough to be freed, whether Chengsu might take his other arm. After some time, they arrange themselves like an army on a field when Ching and Hyobong emerge. Hyobong addresses him, stating that he is the son of the Muram Alliance master, and asks what will happen to the alliance now that the two masters are injured. Ching laughs, reassuring him not to worry, while Wang Huel explains that the alliance was formed to fight off the supreme saber of the six martial arts sect. He adds that if the alliance were broken, it would lead to a multi-front war. That was simply Buso's attempt to escape his current situation alive. Yaon agrees while Hyobong admits that his worries were unfounded. Wang Huel acknowledges the situation, noting that they have the unorthodox alliance to the west, the supreme saber of the 6 martial arts sect to the east, and them in the south, so they won't do anything as foolish as breaking the alliance. Hyobong asks what Yaon plans to do with them, to which he responds that he will send everyone back except for Buso and the masters. Wang Hule states that he will go to the Miram Alliance to relay the message. Yaon tells him that there is no need for that, as they might take him hostage and demand an exchange of captives. A letter should suffice. Hyobong comments that, in any case, the Zhonghu now knows how powerful Yaon is, and he may even be given a title. The scene shifts to 3 days later at the Orthodox Miram Alliance Grand Pavilion, where Ocean inquires how this could happen, asking if it is true, and another person affirms that it is. Xian replies, acknowledging that even Buso was no match for him. Limak wonders if Yaon really took control of Buso's Kai sword technique, questioning whether that is even possible. Chengguan reflects that Chengsu was correct in stating that the demonic cult leader has reached the life and death realm in just a few months. He had believed it impossible to reach that realm so quickly. Yaon has far transcended human limits, and he asks what is on his back. Peng Yosak responds, explaining that the demonic cult leader instructed him to ensure the message reaches the Miram Alliance master and presents a box to them. Limak asks what he means by that, and when they open the box, they find the severed hands of their 3 warriors. They are all shocked, and Chengguan asks if the severed hands belong to their warriors. Limak removes Buso's arm and wonders at the audacity of the demonic cult leader, thinking that he must believe they will not be able to break their alliance. He notices something resembling a piece of paper in his hand. Limak wonders what has been done, unable to open his hand even when he tries to force it open. He attempts to open his hand to retrieve the paper, but is unsuccessful. Using his power, he finally manages to open his hand. Once it is open, he takes the paper and reads it, thinking about why it has been made so difficult to open. Chunggun asks what Limak thinks the meaning of this is when Gakyeon interjects, stating that he believes it is a warning to stop them from attempting to reverse the emperor's decision on the national religion. He continues, explaining that the current demonic cult leader is even worse than the previous one. The situation and their image as the Miram Alliance are both deteriorating rapidly. He thinks that the demonic cult led by Yaon is even more dangerous than the supreme saber of the 6 martial arts sect. Limak places the arm back and suggests a new course of action, prompting Namgung Jiang to ask what he is proposing. Limak states that he is suggesting the renouncement of the alliance with the demonic cult. Gakyeon responds that the alliance leader is being too rash, while Chengguan agrees, urging that the destruction of the alliance is too extreme and asking him to reconsider. Limak inquires if they all share the same opinion, while Gakyeon reflects that, in order to strike down the proposal, they must have the support of the Namgung Patriarch, though he knows that the Patriarch is a very radical man. Chengguan thinks back to when he was opposed to the alliance with the demonic cult, even when the supreme saber of the 6 martial arts sect appeared in the Zhonghu. Namgung, aware that he is one of Buso's masters, believes that he will likely agree with the proposal, thinking it through carefully. Namgung considers what he will do. As Heaven's master, he is open to the idea of destroying the alliance, but even so, he finds it difficult to move forward, especially after Buso's arm is severed. Limak thinks that this is a rather extreme decision to propose, especially when considering the alliance leader's usual personality. He reflects that the reason the alliance leader was able to reach his position, despite not being from the 9 great sects or the 5 great clans, is because he is a very centrist and righteous man. Limak is certain that the demonic cult, the supreme saber of the 6 martial arts sect, and the rest of the unorthodox forces will gather at the Dano festival. He believes the spread of medical knowledge was successful, thanks to the book left behind by the Earth Master, but with the support of the Alliance, this is their opportunity to rid themselves of all the higher-ups of the unorthodox sects. Namgung asks if Limak can explain the reasoning behind such a grave decision. Limak responds that the reason he initially pushed for an alliance with the demonic cult was to remove the roots of dangerous evil, but he now realizes he was wrong. He acknowledges that working with another evil to eradicate evil goes against their principles. He says that they need to correct this mistake, as they are the center of the orthodox, and thinks he had been doubtful because the proposal seemed so sudden, but he realizes he was worried for no reason. He considers that with the 2 general strategists and the other masters absent, this is his chance. Namgung acknowledges his reasoning, saying that he has been moved by his consideration for justice. He agrees with the proposal, especially since he had been against the alliance from the beginning. Gakyeon laughs and tells Chungwon that this might be very bad and that they need to stop it. He responds that in order to move forward with the proposal, they need the agreement of the majority of the masters unless the other masters are not required. Namgung suggests a quicker solution, using the alliance leader mandate. He recalls the description of the alliance leader mandate, which states that the Miram alliance is composed of many sects and clans, and decisions are typically made through meetings. However, the alliance leader mandate is an exception, allowing the alliance leader 3 opportunities to make absolute decisions that must be followed without argument. Chungwon shouts at Namgung, stating that the former alliance leaders have all hesitated to use the mandate unless it was an extreme situation. He questions how Namgung could suggest using it in such a critical case. Limok responds, agreeing with the third master's opinion, and declares that the alliance nullification will be announced as an alliance leader mandate. Chungwon protests, asking how Limok could make such a decision. Meanwhile, Namgung reflects that he was not lying when he brought up the mandate. He is certain that the Blue Heaven Society master will be overjoyed by this outcome. The scene shifts to the Miram Alliance base in the Alliance leader's office, where Limok sits and reads the letter he retrieved from Buso's hand. The letter from him states that Yeon, the demonic cult leader, apologizes for the harm caused to his son in the Imperial Palace. He explains that he had to upset his son in order to avoid suspicion. He promises that once everything is over, he will return his son and the 2 masters safely to him. He also asks the emperor to rescind his decision on the national religion, requesting that they trust him on this matter. He notes that it is possible the high-ranking members of the Supreme Saber of the 6 martial arts sect might not appear at the Nano festival due to the events that transpired at the Imperial Palace. He mentions that he has heard of similar problems regarding spies, which he is also facing. After reading the letter, Limok becomes enraged, crumpling the paper in his fist. He reflects that although he is angered by the actions of the demonic cult leader, he has no intention of reacting impulsively. He understands why the demonic cult leader would deceive his own allies to mislead the Supreme Saber of the 6 martial arts sect, and the suggestion to nullify the alliance begins to make sense. He burns the letter, resolving that, despite the anger it stirred, he has decided to trust the demonic cult leader for now. He recognizes, however, that this is a gamble. The scene shifts to the Miram Alliance base in the southwestern region, deep within the valleys of Lover Peak, where Bok Jeong enters a cave, bows respectfully, and states that he, Bok Jeong of the 3rd Squad of the Kai Blade sect, has carried out the orders as instructed. The masked man asks what happened, and Bok Jeong responds that the mission was a success. The masked man inquires if the nullification of the alliance has been announced, to which Bok Jeong confirms. The masked man then removes his own hat and face mask, revealing his true identity, and comments that the mask he had created was flawless. No one had doubted that he was the real Peng Yosak. The masked man tells him to stop, warning that the mask was made from a corpse and would rip if he continues to pull at it. Bok Jeong apologizes for his actions. The masked man then asks if the Blue Heaven Society has started moving. Bok Jeong replies that, as expected, Namgung Jeong has stepped up to help, and he believes they will soon uncover the identity of the Blue Heaven Society's master. The masked man acknowledges this and tells him to keep an eye on them until the plan begins. Bok Jeong responds with understanding and quickly exits. As Bok Jeong leaves, the masked man thinks about the demonic cult leader, Yeon, who has managed to interfere with their plans from the shadows up until now. He vows that Yeon will pay for his actions, especially for what he has done to Beak. The scene shifts 2 days later to the headquarters of the forces of evil in the northwest of Sichuan province, within the leader's chambers. Gar Majum states that the alliance between the Martial Artists Alliance and the demonic cult was dissolved more quickly than expected, lasting less than a year. He further notes that, given the internal conflict, their alliance must respond cautiously to the current situation, and he concludes his report on the state of the martial world. Hang Yeon laughs, finding the situation quite entertaining. He remarks that if they simply wait for the Dano festival, they could reap significant rewards. However, thanks to the fool who disrupted things, they are missing out on a truly excellent opportunity. Majum assures him that, as long as his lord has recovered from his injuries, they can resolve the situation at any time, as a physician uses needle therapy to heal Hang Yon. Yon thinks to himself, considering that even though their attack was a joint effort, he has seen what that man is capable of. He realizes that, in the future, even if he faces him alone, he cannot guarantee the outcome. He concludes that it is not entirely surprising. At that moment, Gar Majum calls to him, drawing Hang Yon's attention. He replies that it is only natural for the waves of the Yangtze River to push each other forward. After so many years of dominance, this moment has finally arrived. Majum urges him not to say such things, reminding him that he is the leader of the great forces of Evil Alliance and the overlord of the West. He adds that there are tens of thousands of warriors who look up to him, and it is crucial that he shakes off his injuries and does not show weakness in front of his subordinates. Yon retorts that Majum had brought him here as a mere accountant, and now he is being lectured. He exhales deeply and expresses that Majum is being too much, considering he is responsible for only 3/10 of the Alliance's funds. It is disheartening, he says. Yon then laughs, acknowledging that hearing Majum's words makes him realize the importance of showing that the true overlord is still alive in the martial world. Majum asks for clarification on what he means, to which Yon responds that he is referring to the non-aggression treaty in Tonga County. He adds that they are still in the midst of a civil war, so it would be better to focus on his recovery for now. Yon says no. Allowing the Nano festival to pass without action would reveal his injuries to both the martial world and that fool. He continues, explaining that if they do not send someone for the non-aggression treaty, the chances of being targeted again will increase. The fortunate thing, he adds, is that he has not personally gone for the treaty renewal thus far. This time, he can still send a proxy and will attend it himself. Majum asks if he intends to leave the stronghold now. Yon replies that it doesn't matter, as the forces of evil and the Chopa sword are guarding the place. He emphasizes that he is not just sending someone away. The ones who killed his nephews, the Yellow River 3 ghosts, were from the demonic cult. Majum acknowledges this, saying he indeed owes them a debt. Yon responds that he will give Majum the opportunity to repay that debt this time. He concludes that once the treaty ceremony is over, chaos will surely follow. If that happens, they will know who the martial artists and the Blade God 6 martial clan will target first. Yon says he has heard that Yao's son has also been making quite the name for himself these days, and he instructs Majum to show them that the martial world is not a place where one can rampage without true strength. He then asks what the righteous faction called the current demon cult leader when their alliance was broken. Majum embraces him and responds that they refer to him with a very arrogant title. He adds that they claimed he desecrated the emperor, severed the arms of the Justice Alliance's top leaders who went as envoys, and betrayed their trust. They called him Yokshin Meje, the heavenly demon emperor. Yon scoffs at the title, saying that even he, a great master, is but an overlord. He remarks that the title is truly presumptuous from the very start, instructing Majum to make sure that the demon cult leader never uses it again. Majum bows and assures him, saying that he, Majum of the Yellow River Alliance, will carry out his lord's orders and crush those demon cult scoundrels before walking out. Yon is not feeling well, and just thinking about that scoundrel, Yaon, causes his chest to ache. His eyes are bloodshot with fury. He recalls how Yaon had turned into a beast, relentlessly charging at him even when subjected to lethal attacks, forcing him to retreat. Yon vows to repay that humiliation with his son's life. The scene shifts to 4 days before the non-aggression treaty at the main headquarters of the Martial Artists Alliance, where the leader reads a document in his court. He announced that by imperial decree, the ceremony for the crown and the non-aggression treaty between the Murim and the demon cult would take place during the Nano festival in Jinseong, Tongs County. He states that this will be a peaceful occasion for the Martial Artists Alliance, the demonic cult, the forces of evil, and the Blade God 6 martial clan to sign a non-aggression treaty with the Great Ming Empire. He states that the escort troops from each faction must not exceed 100, and during the ceremony, Namgung thinks about the restriction on the number of escort troops, recognizing whose idea this is. He laughs to himself, thinking it is futile. His alliance with the Martial Artists Alliance has been broken, and now he stands right in the heart of their territory. With 5 squads, including the Baiyuan sect, surrounding the capital, no matter what tricks he tries to pull with his majesty, He won't be able to leave Tong country alive. Namgung reflects that even if the demon cult leader grows suspicious, it will be too late. The situation has become increasingly ironic. Even before the announcement of the alliance's dissolution, the martial artists of the Martial Artists Alliance had already stationed themselves along the borders of Hubei and the Yellow River. He notes the three major forces, the forces of evil, the demon cult, the Blade God's 6 martial clan, and the 7 sects of the Martial Artists Alliance, including the Jianchang sect and the Wudang sect. He thinks, as if it were planned, the forces of evil from Sichuan province and the Blade God's 6 martial clan from Zhejiang province have naturally roamed the border area, effectively blocking the demon cult's advance. He reflects that currently, only about 50 demon cult members remain in the imperial palace, and demon sect leader Yao's mistake is that he has created a sense of crisis for everyone. He notes that the enhanced techniques of the Blade God's 6 martial clan secretly improved under the Martial Artists Alliance have also been completed. He scoffs at the title of Heavenly Demon Emperor, thinking that evil can never look down upon the heavens. For the sake of the azure sky, Tong County will become his grave. He recalls that the Nano festival, held on the 5th day of the lunar month, also known as the Heavenly Midday Festival, Zhanghua Festival, or Danyang, is said to be the day of the year when the yang energy is at its strongest. The scene shifts to Jinxiang, located in the heart of Tong County, Henan Province. It is the first capital where the founding emperor of the Great Ming Empire rose to power, the place where he swore to the heavens to save the heroes and people of the Central Plains. A guard rings the drums and announces the arrival of the leader of the Martial Alliance and the heads of each faction. Limak arrives there with Chungun and Namgung. He thinks that it is finally starting. From today onward, many things will change. A guard approaches and offers to guide them. Limak moves forward with his warriors while another guard observes him. The guard thinks, as expected of the Martial Artists Alliance, they are disciplined but wonders why they cannot hide their hostility. Namgung observes the warriors and thinks that insisting on using the Baiyuan sect instead of the Jianghui Corps as the escort is proving to be a wise decision. He recalls that the leader of the Baiyuan sect is none other than the elder son of the Martial Alliance leader, Yon Buso. He thinks it seems that the demon cult leader truly excels at creating enemies rather than mastering martial arts. He observes that not only the Baiyuan sect members, but also the deputy leader, Ho Yang-jom, is filled with fury as he looks at him. He recalls hearing that he had once suppressed 300 members of the Golden Guards and eunuchs with sheer force. He wonders if the deputy leader can still achieve such feats now, especially with the forces of evil and the Blade God's 6 martial clan expected to arrive with their top forces as well. He reflects that once the treaty ceremony ends, war could break out at any moment. The key will be dealing with the demon cult leader and his followers afterward. Another drum sounds, announcing the arrival of the executives of the forces of evil and the heads of each faction. Chenggun looks at Limak, thinking that he had heard the forces of evil are currently embroiled in a civil war, yet they are still attending the event. As Gar Majum arrives, they are all shocked to see him. An old warrior thinks that it is indeed Majum of the Yellow River Alliance, while another one wonders how he could be here. Limak, observing the situation, reflects that Yon hasn't come this time either. The ones accompanying Majum appear to be the leaders of the 18 river families, though one is conspicuously absent. Majum surveys the room, his eyes scanning for the demon cult members, thinking that even tearing them apart wouldn't suffice to ease his rage. His mind drifts to a time when he was gravely injured, recalling the event when a man named Yang Danhua, the head of the northern Henan branch of the demon cult, along with a pale-faced young man, had discovered the location of the Yangho channel. He recalls how Yang Danhua had acted with great respect, suggesting that he must hold a high position within the demon cult and that they had likely come from the 10,000 mountains. Majum's thoughts sharpen as he resolves that while he may not know who the true culprit is, Yang Danhua must be found first. Once that is done, he will ensure that he beheads his precious ones right in front of him. Limak looks at him, who in turn meets his gaze. At that moment, a guard announces that the leaders of the top 3 factions of the Blade God's 6 martial clan, along with the heads of each faction, are entering. Chenggun wonders what the top 3 factions mean. From the information gathered, he knows that there are 6 main factions in the Blade God's 6 martial clan, and he surmises that half of their strength has arrived here. He reflects that this is the first time since they lost Jiangsu province and wonders if they are now aiming for dominance in the Central Plains through this gathering. Limak, his attention still focused on the incoming leaders, turns to Master Feng and remarks that these are not ordinary individuals. He adds that it's possible this gathering may require everyone in the alliance to risk their lives today. Limak observes the three individuals and remarks that all of them are in the mystic realm, each skilled enough to be comparable to him. Liwuk asks what Limak means by that. Chungwun, unable to discern their martial realm, silently acknowledges that while he knows they will be more powerful than him, it is now confirmed that they are all in the mystic realm. Limak's gaze shifts toward Liwuk, and he thinks especially of the man with the blindfold, who has undoubtedly reached the peak of the mystic realm, just like himself. He considers the man good enough to be ranked among the 5 great martial artists. Namgung is struck with disbelief. He thinks to himself that this is an absurdly powerful group of people. The 12 behind the 3 top leaders are all in the evolutionary realm, and the 100 behind them are all at the supreme peak or above. Namgung had intended to focus on the demon cult leader first, but he realized that this plan was no longer feasible. He thinks they need to make the factions fight each other instead, as they will undoubtedly lose if they don't engage with their full strength. Ya Wongkang observes the shock on their faces and laughs, while No Dokyung dismissively states that there's no need to pay attention to those who are destined to die. Wongkang responds that Dokyung can't even take a joke, but he's probably too old for that kind of humor. Dokyung, though irritated, thinks Ya Wongkang is too arrogant. Liwuk then calmly announces that everything has been prepared underground, and with a single signal, no one here will make it out alive. Dokyung asks if he doubts the effectiveness of the 7-star ultimate blade array, suggesting that eliminating the demon cult leader might suffice without needing to resort to the Rage Strike Thunderclap. Liwuk briefly explains that the Rage Strike Thunderclap is a bomb 5 times more powerful than the regular Strike Thunderclap, created a century ago by the explosive specialist No Kyukja. Liwuk responds, expressing that it's wise to prepare for the worst-case scenario. He believes that if they manage to eliminate these formidable forces, they will be one step closer to their final, grand plan. Dokyung observes the situation, noting that the coldness in his demeanor has deepened since the loss of his brother. He is helping out now because he was ordered to, but he knows that anyone he wants to kill will never make it out alive, no matter the circumstances. As he reflects on this, Wang Hule arrives with his warriors, throwing bombs into the palace and filling the air with thick smoke. A guard announces that the heavenly demon divine cult leader has arrived, causing the others to exchange glances, silently acknowledging the annoyance of his presence. Liwuk says to his guard that they will initiate the plan once the demon cult leader reaches the center. His guard confirms the instructions, and Liwuk thinks to himself that the treaty ritual no longer matters. He plans to eliminate them all, especially since the most important figures from the 3 major forces are now gathered here. He resolves that no one will leave this place alive, not even a bone remaining. Majum, observing the scene, eyes the large boxes being carried in with curiosity. He asks what are they bringing? Why is that man so large? Those look like coffins, as the guards carefully set the boxes down. Wang Hule looks at them all, smiling as he opens the boxes and drops all the bombs onto the ground. An old warrior wonders what those iron balls are. Dokyung says he does not believe it, while Wongkang asks how they managed to acquire such things. Hule apologized for being late, explaining that there were simply too many bombs to undo. Majum asks what he means by that. Limak wonders if the ordinary-looking man is the leader of the demonic cult, or if they are being mocked. Yongzhou then asks Ya Hyingin if that is true. He replies that all those bombs were placed under them. Yong observes that those explosives are much larger than the thunderclaps they are used to, questioning why such devices are here. Someone asks what they are discussing, adding that all of those are bombs, and there must be at least 500 more in the other boxes. The old leader reflects that he had thought only the government handled explosives. How could they have so many? He realizes they must notify His Imperial Majesty right away. He uses his powers to capture 2 of the bombs from the area, and Liwuk sees this, thinking that it might be a void capture. He realizes that the man is the true leader of the demonic cult, possessing an incredible amount of Kai, though something feels strange. It's far past noon. The old leader wonders why the prince is still nowhere to be seen, questioning whether they ever intended to sign the pact. If this is his scheme, it must be Yeon's. Namgung thinks that that man is truly the demonic cult leader, yet he cannot sense anything from him. The old leader asserts that he is certain the person responsible is well known to them, and he hopes the news will be relayed to his imperial majesty. Hyung acknowledges this, while Yong remarks that it would have been disastrous if not for him. He promises to ensure the news reaches the imperial majesty. He runs off with Hyung, stating that he will leave him to handle the situation. Liwook, also called Woonkang, says their plan has been doomed from the start. He has already circulated his Kai and jumps away. Liwook orders for the gates to be shut. A guard blows the whistle as Liwook commands the defense against an ambush from above the walls. The attackers struck the gate guards, killing them, cutting the ropes, and forcing the gates open. The guards inside look at the gate, confused, and ask what is happening. Limak questions what is going on, while Woonkang declares that the gates have been seized. Hyung urges the others to flee, saying they are being pursued. Yong advises not to look back and to run toward the northern gates. A guard observes them and remarks that they will get caught at this rate. Woonkang laughs mockingly, calling them fools and stating that there is no point in running. Namgung watches him and realizes he has already caught up to them. Woonkang lunges at them, shouting for them to die, but Marakiam intervenes, blocking his sword. Woonkang demands to know what Marakiam means by this action. Woonkang looks at Marakiam and asks if he is the Dark King. Marakiam immediately launches an attack, but Woonkang evades and counters with a swift leap. Marakiam contemplates swinging his blade in this position, while Woonkang acknowledges the skill of the demonic cult's head guardian. He realizes the fight will take some time before he can secure victory. Frustrated, he thinks he must catch up to the others. Liwook notices the situation and uses his powers to assist. He declares that the northern gate has been opened and warns that they are about to lose their quarry, adding that he will not let them escape so easily. Drawing the swords of all the guards, he sends them hurtling as weapons toward the fleeing group. The guards are shocked to see swords flying toward them. Hyung, startled, asks if this is Kai sword control, and they begin running to evade the attack. Liwook then exclaims that someone has taken control of his Kai sword manipulation. Dokyeong, incredulous, questions what he means, insisting it is impossible. He demands to know who could be capable of such a feat. Suddenly, Yaon removes his mask and uses his powers to block the Kai sword attack. Limak observes this and realizes he has taken control, marveling that it is possible. Mahjong, in disbelief, wonders if this is the life and death realm in action. Yaon retaliates, commanding the attack to reverse, sending all the swords hurtling back toward Liwook. He, startled, questions whether this is mere Kai sword control as he uses his own sword to shatter the incoming blades. Dokyeong notes that the others have escaped, while Liwook reflects on the situation. He acknowledges the failure of their grand plan, but refuses to accept defeat, recognizing Yaon as the demonic cult leader. Chungwon, observing from a distance, contemplates Yaon's transformation. He thinks back to how it hasn't been long since their last encounter, yet his aura has drastically changed, even though his appearance remains the same. He finds it astonishing that such rapid improvement is possible, noting the newfound authority in Yaon's presence. He recognizes that Yaon now exudes the commanding presence of a lord, the leader of an organization. Mahjong recalls a conversation with an injured warrior who had told him about the individuals who located the dragon Tiger Claw. The warrior had mentioned a man named Yang Danhwa, the eastern branch leader of Henan province, and a young man with a very pale face. He speculated that they had come from the 10,000 Great Mountains. Considering Yang Danhwa's respectful demeanor, the warrior had surmised that he held a high rank within the demonic cult. Now, as Mahjong sees Yaon's face, he becomes certain of the truth. It was indeed the demonic cult leader who slit the throats of his nephews, the Yellow River Three Demons, and brought down the dragon Tiger Claw. Clenching his fist tightly, Mahjong feels an overwhelming desire to tear him apart, but acknowledges the need to work with the others if they are to stand a chance of defeating him. Observing the tense atmosphere, he realizes he is not the only one harboring such thoughts. Namgung, meanwhile, considers the sheer power of the explosives, which are 3 times larger than what they possess. Reflecting on how such a vast quantity had been planted beneath them, he concludes that their enemies had likely intended to annihilate everyone present. He realizes that the supreme saber of the 6 martial arts sect is far more dangerous than they had anticipated, an entity beyond their ability to control. Namgung reflects, certain that even the Alliance head would not be able to defeat the demonic cult leader in a fight. The certainty on his face confirms it, and he realizes they are surrounded by enemies on both sides. He ponders which opponent he should prioritize attacking first. Liwook suddenly addresses him, asking whether he should call him the Heaven Master of the Blue Heaven Society. Namgung looks at him in surprise, startled by the statement. He thinks to himself that very few people know of his true identity. Could it be that Liwook has spies even within their ranks? At that moment, Tang Pilsun arrives and remarks whether there is something Namgung wishes to say to him, addressing him as Heaven's Master. Namgung deflects the question, replying that it is nothing and asking him not to mind it, referring to him as Yin Master. As Tang Pilsun moves away, Namgung thinks to himself that it seems Liwook has not yet approached the Yin Master, which offers some relief. Liwook interrupts his thoughts, speaking directly. He states that Namgung must already understand the truth. The demonic cult poses a far greater threat to the Orthodox Alliance than any other faction. He adds that the cult leader is no longer human. However, he points out that the cult leader is currently alone. Yaon asks what Liwook is implying. Liwook replies that, at this moment, it is possible to kill the martial artist who has reached the life and death realm. Namgung adds that even someone of that caliber would not be able to fend off an assault from dozens of martial artists at the evolutionary realm and mystic realm. He also notes that he likely has a hidden trump card, but insists that such a sacrifice is worth the cost. He estimates they will lose about 80% of their forces, but deems it an acceptable trade. Namgung reflects further, suspecting that Liwook must have planted a spy within their society. The fact that Liwook knows about the supreme martial physique confirms it. However, he believes he is not aware of the true identity of the society leader. Liwook reassures him, saying that they will lead the attack if Namgung agrees to fight alongside them. Yaon considers the situation and surmises that the demonic cult leader must indeed be formidable, if even the supreme saber of the six martial arts sect is suggesting an alliance. Namgung, meanwhile, acknowledges that they have no other choice. He admits that this is their only opportunity to eliminate the cult leader. He reveals that he has already discussed the matter with the Yellow River Supreme Leader, Majum, and thinks about how quickly Liwook has acted. He even considers the involvement of the unorthodox alliance, marveling at the speed and decisiveness of the preparations. Liwook agrees, but only on the condition that this alliance lasts solely for the duration of their fight against the demonic cult leader. He emphasizes that there is no time to waste and urges Namgung to convince the Miram Alliance head himself. Namgung agrees, thinking that the Alliance head will likely support his decision. In his mind, the Alliance head is rash enough to shatter the Alliance if necessary, so there is no doubt he would approve. Majum addresses the group, stating firmly that their enemy is none other than the demonic cult leader, Yaon, who brought down the dragon Tiger Claw. He declares that tonight, they will honor the souls of their fallen comrades with Yaon's blood and commands the group to follow him. Liwook raises his sword, rallying the descendants of the Supreme Saber God, and urges them to eliminate the demonic cult leader for the sake of their great cause. He tells them to have no fear as he prepares for the fight. Namgung turns to Liwook, urging him to seize this opportunity to coordinate their attack on the demonic cult leader. Without hesitation, Namgung leaps in front of Yaon. Observing this, Namgung becomes confused by Liwook's actions, wondering if he intends to fight Yaon one-on-one. He also leaps near Liwook, accompanied by their other allies, who quickly assemble behind him. Liwook watches the tense standoff, questioning his intentions as the two opposing teams come face to face. Namgung, suspicious, notices Liwook and Yaon exchange what appears to be a subtle nod. Alarmed, he calls out to Liwook, demanding to know what he is doing and accusing him of siding with the demonic cult. Liwook questions his motives and asks why he seems to be aligning with their enemies. Stunned, Namgung wonders what Liwook truly means by his words. The scene shifts to a secluded area near Kaifeng, deep within the woods, where two figures stand amidst the shadows of the trees. Liwook arrives and remarks that Yaon is late, to which Yaon responds that it seems they finally meet. Without wasting time, Liwook gets straight to the point and questions the meaning behind the letter Yaon had sent. Yaon replies calmly, stating that the letter meant exactly what it implied. He explains that he thought Liwook might already have some understanding of the situation, but admits he may have overestimated him. He elaborates on the extreme ideology driving the movement to purify the world by eradicating evil. At first glance, he explains, it may not appear to threaten the Alliance, which is precisely how the Blue Heaven Society has been expanding its influence. Yaun reveals that a significant number of the Alliance's members are already taking orders from the Blue Heaven Society, with their commands being prioritized over those of the Alliance leadership. Limok asks what Yaun means by this claim. In response, Yaun hands him a book, explaining that it contains a list of individuals affiliated with the Blue Heaven Society, along with their hierarchy. However, he notes that the identities of the society's leader and a few higher-ranking members remain uncertain. Limok takes the book and scans through its contents, his expression darkening as he reads a specific name. He states aloud that it is Heaven's Master Namgung Jayung. Yaun asks if this revelation tells him anything significant. Limok considers the situation, recalling how Namgung had once advised using the Alliance leader's mandate. He questions his motives, assuming there must be a reason for revealing this information. Limok stated that he does not believe Yaun is acting out of genuine concern, nor does he trust that the demonic cult would genuinely work to undermine the Muram Alliance. Yaun calmly explains that the Blue Heaven Society, in collaboration with the Supreme Saber of the Six Martial Arts Sect, plans to launch an attack on the Alliance during the Nano Festival. Limok, alarmed, demands clarification, but Yaun elaborates with chilling certainty. He describes how the attack will become a bloodbath, claiming it won't end merely with the deaths of the Alliance leader and the Master, but will escalate into the Orthodox Muram Alliance's complete downfall. Yaun continues, stating that although they have been adversaries for a long time, the collapse of the Alliance would also harm them. He emphasizes the critical need for the Muram Alliance to maintain its presence in Zhongyuan despite their differences. This meeting, he explains, is meant to prevent such a catastrophe. Limok's mind races as he begins to suspect whether Yaun is testing him. Observing his hesitation, Yaun acknowledges how difficult it must be to trust him. He admits that he did not expect Limok to believe his words so easily, which is precisely why he has an offer to make. Limok asks what the offer is, to which it is replied that it is essential to reverse their plans. From this point onward, once the time arrives, it is hoped for dearly. Limok recalls that Namgung had advised him to keep an eye on them, as this time would soon come. Liwuk believes that his message regarding the Supreme Saber of the Six Martial Arts Sects would not be delivered. The scene shifts back to the battlefield, where Limok believes he is right. When Namgung asks him what he is doing at that moment and whether he is now siding with the demonic cult, Limok replies that he could ask the same question and inquires why Namgung is attempting to side with their enemies. Namgung ponders what is being said while Liwuk asks Limok what he meant by saying he had broken the alliance with the demonic cult, questioning the true meaning of his words. Limok reflects that he did not expect those scoundrels to take sides, remarking that it is rich coming from someone who had planted all those bombs underground. He recalls the letters that had been sent to him, pressuring him to break the alliance. Limok asks if he truly thought he wouldn't discover that spies had been planted to interfere with the letters, while Namgung asks what is meant by those letters. Limok states that a very small yet lethal mistake had been made, and he believes he was able to work with cult leader Yaun in secret because this mistake had revealed that everything had been orchestrated. Limok recalls a letter from Yaun, in which Yaun identifies himself as Chen Yaun, the demonic cult leader, and apologizes for the harm caused to his son in the imperial palace. Limok reflects that after all those years of being enemies with the demonic cult, the one thing he learned is that they do not refer to themselves as the demonic cult, but as the heavenly demon divine cult. Liwuk exhales and asks if that was what exposed them, to which Limok responds that he will eliminate the Supreme Saber of the Six Martial Arts sect for attempting to sabotage their alliance and threaten the Great Ming Empire. A warrior states that they cannot side with those traitors and that they stand with him. Meanwhile, Namgung thinks to himself, cursing the ridiculous situation, and asks the Heaven Master what should be done, as the morale of the soldiers is decreasing. Namgung realizes that there is no turning back now, even if he is framed, and that a great sacrifice must be made. He must kill the demonic cult leader here. He urges his brothers of Blue Heaven not to be shaken, assuring them that they have the advantage in this situation, and that this is their only chance to take down the evil demonic cult leader. He calls on them to follow him to the Blue Heaven to bring down the demonic cult for the sake of a world governed by Blue Heaven, as he raises his sword. Limok reflects that this is how Namgung intends to proceed. However, Limok cannot allow that organization to survive. He needs to bring them down here. He calls out to Sung Beek, questioning why he is still over there and instructing him to come over with the soldiers, as it seems Sung Beek is going to side with the demonic cult leader who has taken the squad leader hostage. He replies that he apologizes, but he has decided that the White Ring squad will not be following his orders. They are going to bring down the demonic cult leader. Limok asks what that means, expressing hope for his safety while thinking that even the White Ring squad is involved. He tells Yeon that the situation does not seem to be in their favor and asks if he has any plan in mind just as a guard announces that the northern gates have been closed. Another guard asks if he believes their allies have taken over that gate. Chungwoon asks cult leader Yeon what he is attempting, as he has blocked off their only exit route. Liwook says that he cannot believe his only escape path is being blocked, expressing his gratitude that Yeon is doing the work for him and laughs. Yeon responds that there is no need for thanks, as he was simply ensuring that no one would be able to run away. Liwook asks what kind of nonsense is being spoken while he senses an unfamiliar aura, realizing that there are many of them, all above the ultimate peak, and they are outside the walls. Wang Huel and his warriors jump inside, with Huel asking how someone dare be so late when they are from the Guardian Pavilion. Chingwoon wonders what is meant by the Guardian Pavilion, realizing that they must be direct affiliates of the cult leader, but their numbers continue to increase. Other warriors jump in, and Munju comments that it is unfair, stating that they have been with the cult leader this entire time and do not have the right to speak that way. She stands up excitedly, declaring that she, Munju, the second sword troop leader of the Six Swords Troop, greets the demon lord as she bows down. Beek Gi also bows down, introducing himself as Beek Gi, the third sword troop leader of the Six Swords Troop, and greets the demon lord. Simichak follows suit, bowing down and introducing herself as Simichak, the fourth sword troop leader of the Six Swords Troop, and greets the demon lord. Ho Sanghwa then bows down and states that she, Ho Sanghwa, the fifth sword troop leader of the Six Swords Troop, greets the demon lord. Ki Tikjom announces that she, Ki Tikjom, the sixth sword troop leader of the Six Swords Troop, greets the demon lord. Ko Wangyul states that he, Ko Wangyul, the first sword troop leader of the Guardian Pavilion, once again greets the demon lord. Liwook reflects that they are the Six Swords Troop, but it doesn't matter. The tides will not turn simply because of them. He senses an overwhelming aura, realizing that someone is approaching them quickly, just as a warrior arrives and rushes to attack. Namgung wonders if that is the Void Steps, while Majum remarks that the man is the unrivaled sword, Wang Jian. Majum reflects that he is the man who killed 3,000 on his own and transformed the 30 waterways into 18 waterways. Majum asks who he has come for while Liwook contemplates what the unrivaled sword, one of the 5 great martial artists, is doing here. Dukyong is also shocked to see him as Wang Jian bows down and declares that he has come running at his order, greeting the great heavenly demon divine cult's demon lord. Some guards grow irritated, commenting that the noise is unbearable, while Liwook wonders why the embroidered uniform guards and the other soldiers of the palace are kneeling and greeting the demonic cult leader. A guard, with a trembling voice, asks if they are all members of the demonic cult, while another guard questions whether the unrivaled sword Wang Jian just referred to the demonic cult leader as the demon lord. Namgung thinks that there is no way this is happening, unsure of what is going on. Yaon then states that he had told them no one would be allowed to run away, as this place was their grave. He, Qin Yaon, the second heavenly demon of the great heavenly demon divine cult, orders them to kill all the enemies. They all respond affirmatively, saying yes, demon lord. Limok reflects on the heavenly demon, considering that he is calling himself by the name of the man who walked the path of a tyrant. He wonders if the man is declaring his intent to follow the same path. Meanwhile, a warrior commands his forces to attack the demonic cult scoundrels. Wang Jian expresses his liking for this mission, mentioning that it is his first, and declares that he will go for the head first. Majum comments that he knew Wang Jian would come after him first and rushes to attack Dukyong, who questions whether he is attempting to fight someone weak, considering how strong he is. Both warriors engage in an attempt to defeat one another. Majum thinks to himself that the old man is calling him weak, and he resolves to work with the Blue Heaven Society to attack the demonic cult leader while he takes care of Dukyong. Majum, confident in his strategy, orders that the 18 waterways follow him as they prepare to strike the demonic cult leader, and his warriors agree. He then asks, wielding his giant great sword as if it were nothing more than a branch. Dukyung remarks that it is expected of one of the 5 great martial artists, while Wang Jian observes the unique footwork, noting that Dukyung is dodging his attacks without moving more than 3 steps. Wang Jian wonders if Dukyung is so confident in his ability to dodge his strikes. As Dukyung nearly stabs his neck, Wang Jian responds by stabbing his ribs and blocking his sword with his other hand. They continue to attack and block each other's swords, with Wang Jian thinking that Dukyung seems to be one of the higher-ups of the Supreme Saber of the 6 martial arts sect, as his martial arts level is similar to his own. Wang Jian remarks that he did not know someone like Dukyung existed in the Zhonghu. Dukyung laughs, stating that Zhongyuan is a large place, and affirms that as one of the 5 great martial artists, he must be strong enough to be a match for him. He also laughs and asks if it wouldn't have been better to fight the Demon Lord if Dukyung seeks someone strong. He replies that they should not try to avoid this, as they have prepared something special for the demonic cult leader, and he will be the one to fight him. Wang Jian thinks that the man is like a snake, but he agrees, stating that this will be enough for a warm-up, and now they can fight seriously. He unleashes his powerful aura to attack. At the same time, Majum and his team launch their attack on the demonic cult warriors. Namgung orders his forces to fight with the Demon Lord and not fall back. He thinks that the Miram Alliance members are obstructing their progress. They need to attack the demonic cult leader together. But where is he? Wang Huel watches them all, reflecting that the masters have begun fighting, when a guard announces that it is him, pointing toward Namgung and urging his fellows to get him. Namgung uses his aura powers to attack the guards, killing them in one strike. He calls them arrogant, then runs away, thinking that he will rid himself of the demonic cult's minions. At that moment, Limok uses his fire lightning attack on Liwook. Limok thinks that he is fighting the Alliance head and Jiao Wun, while Liwook reflects on how daring it is for him to use Kai in an attempt to gain the upper hand in their fight. He wonders if Limok truly believes he can win this way. Limok, however, resolves to teach him a lesson and unleashes his powers to break the ground, causing rocks to float in the air. He laughs and sends them toward Liwook, who tries to block them, impressed by the incredible skill. Limok thinks that it is as if each rock was thrown at him using the divine finger flick technique, and he skillfully redirects the rocks, causing them to strike some guards, who are injured in the process. Namgung, observing from a distance, thinks that it is truly amazing, realizing that this is what a fight between such expert martial artists looks like. However, he also knows that at this rate, they won't be able to attack the demonic cult leader together. Suddenly, he feels a strong aura behind him. He turns around and asks Heaven's Master, the Vice Patriarch of Tang, when he arrives. The Vice Patriarch responds that it is still dangerous by the stage. Meanwhile, the guardian martial artists of the demonic cult are watching closely as they observe Yaun, who is still engaged in the fight. He explains that the Unorthodox Alliance is currently fighting the guardian martial artists, and they were able to reach this point because of their efforts. He tells the Heaven's Master, Vice Patriarch, to watch what he will do next as he holds the last bottle of formless poison in his hand. He responds that he will go down together with the demonic cult leader. He reflects on the Sichuan Tang clan's notorious reputation for being second to none when it comes to poisons, and the formless poison made by the Tang clan is considered one of the most powerful poisons in Zhongyuan. He thinks that this lethal poison has neither scent nor taste, yet the moment it touches a person's skin, even the most expert martial artist would die within 15 minutes. He also recalls that the poison was banned by the Miram Alliance due to its extreme danger, leading to the destruction of its recipe and all remaining bottles in front of all the masters. Namgung, realizing that not all of the poison was destroyed, urgently calls out to the Vice Patriarch, warning him that he cannot act alone. He insists it is best to wait until they activate the Supreme Martial Physique. The Vice Patriarch responds that it might be too late by then, as the demonic cult leader is distracted at this moment, making it their best opportunity to strike. The Vice Patriarch declares that he will sacrifice his own life to take the demonic cult leader to hell with him, and asks that his eyes be closed at the moment of his death. He replies that he understands and assures him that he will remain by his side until his final moment of sacrifice. As some warriors rush upstairs, the Vice Patriarch thinks of the Million Poison Man technique, which allows him to exude poison from his body, and when combined with the formless poison, he believes he could even kill the Grand Luo immortals. He launches his attack on the warriors, killing them instantly, and thinks that this is why using poison in battle is essentially akin to cheating, which is why the Tang clan has not been widely acknowledged for their accomplishments. Suddenly, Yaon jumps into the fight and attacks him. The Vice Patriarch observes that the Supreme Saber of the Six Martial Arts sect is performing better than he expected, thinking that he must hold on just a little longer. He counts 5 more steps until he reaches his target, which is good enough. He opens the bottle and drinks the poison, immediately feeling the intense pain as it courses through his body. It feels as though he is being torn apart, even though he has ingested countless poisons before, but he disregards the agony. His resolve remains firm. He will sacrifice himself to kill the demonic cult leader, ensuring that the Blue Heaven will thrive. Afterward, the entire world will come to know of the Tang clan and their formidable powers. Some warriors leap toward Yaon, attempting to strike him down, but he counters their attack with precision. The Vice Patriarch observes the scene and concludes that he has no other option but to activate his poisonous aura. As he releases the deadly energy, another warrior notices him and wonders if this man is the high-ranking member of the Blue Heaven Society mentioned by the Kai Blade sect leader, though his appearance seems unusual. However, before the warrior can react further, the Vice Patriarch begins to retreat. Determined to stop him, the warrior calls out for him to halt, reasoning that they cannot allow such a man to approach the Demon Lord. Several warriors rush toward him, but the Vice Patriarch's potent poisonous aura incinerates them instantly, melting their bodies into skeletal remains. Namgung witnesses the gruesome scene, frozen in shock as he processes the sheer potency of the poisonous energy. He thinks to himself that the aura is disintegrating everything in its vicinity and realizes that this must be the true power of the Tang Vice Patriarch. Namgung inwardly cheers for him to rise as a hero. Hyobong recognizes the presence of the poison and warns of its danger, while Wang Jian emphasizes its deadly potential. The Vice Patriarch launches a fierce attack on Yaon, declaring that they should descend into hell together. His poisonous energy surges forward, burning Yaon's face. Yet, as the attack approaches, Yaon turns his head slightly, standing calm and composed. Channeling his lightning power, he effortlessly blocks the Vice Patriarch's strike mid-air, his energy crackling with authority. The Vice Patriarch considers whether it is void capture and questions if such a vast gap exists between their Kai reserves. Regardless, he believes he has managed to close the distance sufficiently to launch an attack. However, his focus shifts as he notices his wounds beginning to heal, leaving him astonished. He reflects on the rapid regeneration of his injuries and resolves to resort to a more extreme measure. Deciding to detonate his poisonous energy, he calculates that the resulting explosion will have a radius of 30 meters, ensuring that no remains, not even bones, will survive the blast. Yaon swiftly strikes, freezing his body in place. He calmly addresses the Vice Patriarch's intent to self-destruct, stating that such an act will not be allowed. The Vice Patriarch, now frozen, shouts in desperation, realizing too late that he is completely immobilized. Yaon responds with icy detachment, stating that it appears the Vice Patriarch will descend into hell alone. Without hesitation, Yaon hurls him away with a surge of lightning energy, detonating him in a powerful blast. Namgung observes the scene, his thoughts racing as he processes the aftermath. He notes how Yaon rendered the poisonous energy utterly ineffective through the mastery of ice arts. Shocked by this unexpected ability, he wonders what a pointless end the Tang Vice Patriarch has suffered. As his thoughts linger, Yaon's gaze shifts toward him, declaring him to be next. Addressing him by name as Heaven's Master, Namgung Jian, Yaon's words leave him perplexed, wondering how Yaon knows his identity. Yaon states that he has found him, confirming that this is where Namgung was hiding. Hyobong suddenly appears in front of him, addressing him with a laugh. He remarks on Yaon's prowess as the Demon Lord, marveling at how he managed to locate Namgung amidst the chaos. Hyobong's casual tone shifts as he mockingly questions what Yaon is doing here in the midst of a mere skirmish when he is supposed to be a master of the Orthodox Murim Alliance. Namgung demands to know who Hyobong is. In response, Hyobong introduces himself simply by name. Namgung, confused, asks what he means by Hyobong, noting to himself that he has never heard of such a name. He begins to suspect that Hyobong is a disciple of the demonic cult, but something about his aura feels unusual and distinct. With a sudden surge of power, Hyobong activates his abilities. He declares himself the first disciple of the great heavenly demon divine cult's demon lord and a member of the Guardian Pavilion. He confidently explains that he is here to learn from Yaon while igniting a fiery energy that envelops his sword. Namgung, recognizing the challenge, activates his own aura around his blade. Observing the peculiar energy emanating from Hyobong's flames, he acknowledges their unusual intensity. Namgung reminds himself not to underestimate him simply because of his youth, as doing so might cost him the battle. Meanwhile, Yaon observes the Vice Patriarch's venomous power and reflects on how his earlier encounter with the uncanny poison demon staff, Biko, had proven beneficial. He recognizes that if the poison had spread throughout the entire area, the battle would have taken a drastically different turn than he had anticipated. He responds with a wry observation, noting that he had thought he would succeed. However, what a disappointment it is for the Vice Patriarch, at least. For Yaon and his allies, it is an advantage, as it now grants them the opportunity to defeat him themselves and claim his warriors. The Vice Patriarch commands the opening of an array, accompanied by outward palm strikes and coordinated attacks targeting Yaon from all directions. Yaon skillfully deflects the attacks. One of the warriors contemplates his own initial nervousness, aware of his mastery within the life and death realm. However, he takes comfort in the strength of the 7-star Ultimate Blade Array, which he considers the finest formation in the world. He concludes that if the fight drags on, their teamwork will give them the upper hand. Biko remarks that even a martial artist of the life and death realm is not invincible. Yaon questions whether the Vice Patriarch always speaks this much and asks if he still has more to say. Without waiting for an answer, he responds with a cold resolve, signaling the start of his attack. Another warrior shouts the command for the 7-move open array, quickly followed by another echoing the same words as they rush forward to attack. Yaon observes their movements and recognizes the technique, an outward palm formation executed in unison by the group. He counters their assault, deflecting their coordinated strikes with his sword. As he blocks, he internally commands Nano, instructing it to save the data under the designation 7-star Ultimate Blade Array. Nano Machine responds promptly, confirming that the analysis of the opponent's attack patterns and formations has been completed and saved under the specified project name. Yaon's thoughts shift as he prepares to engage further, but his focus is interrupted when Biko bursts into laughter. The Vice Patriarch mocks him, accusing him of attempting to flee, and confidently states they would not allow it. Yaon sheathes his sword momentarily before activating his blade aura. He summons his black dragon and charges forward as he affirms that he has no intention of letting Biko escape. Biko scrambles to defend himself, raising his weapon to block the oncoming assault. Biko watches in disbelief, questioning what Yaon is doing. He realizes that Yaon is targeting all the subtle openings in their attacks. Before the warriors can react, Yaon strikes with lethal efficiency, cutting them down in an instant. As Biko looks back, he sees the lifeless bodies of his fallen comrades. Nano Machine reports that Yaon has successfully dismantled the 7-star Ultimate Blade Array and has stored the user's attack patterns for further analysis. Yaon responds calmly, stating that it is an easy task since he is already familiar with the Supreme Saber Divine Martial Arts. He reflects that if he addresses the flaws in this technique and trains the cult's members to counter it, this formation will lose its effectiveness against them. His thoughts shift to the broader picture. Everyone must grow stronger through the trials of this war. His resolve deepens as he looks toward Munju and Bik-gi, who continue to battle fiercely against the warriors. Simultaneously, Limak and Liwook remain locked in their own intense fight, their clashes causing powerful explosions to ripple through the battlefield. Liwook reflects he hadn't anticipated that his opponent would be such a formidable match, but now he acknowledges that he underestimated him. Determined, he resolves to eliminate his adversary quickly so he can join forces with the other 7 sect leaders to bring down the demonic cult leader. Liwook glances up at Yaon, standing on the upper floor, and wonders what he is doing there. He assumes Yaon has already finished his battle. He realizes he can no longer sense the presence of the others. Gritting his teeth, he decides there is no other choice but to activate their last resort. With a commanding shout, he orders the execution of Plan B. His warriors immediately acknowledge the command and charge toward the guards. One of the guards watches as the warriors begin transforming, their bodies twisting grotesquely into demonic forms. Alarmed, he asks what is happening, but his question is drowned out by the guttural roars of the newly emerged demons. One of the demons exclaims that his body is brimming with power. As the guard stares in horror, his thoughts race. This transformation is the demonic blood reversal art before he can act. The demon strikes with overwhelming force, killing him instantly. Laughing maniacally, the demon declared that this was not some inferior, incomplete technique. Instead, it is the perfected blood reversion divine art, a far more advanced and lethal form. Meanwhile, Namgung watches the unfolding chaos while simultaneously clashing with Hyobong. His attention briefly shifts to the transformed demons, and he contemplates their trump card. He notes the irony of its usage, recognizing that they must have resorted to it because the situation now favors the demonic cult leader. However, he reasons that if they have revealed their ace so early, it means they are not in a position to conserve it either. Namgung blows a whistle, and all the warriors turn to look at him. As they are hypnotized, they draw their needles and stab them into their necks, declaring their loyalty to Blue Heaven. A warrior dressed in black, confused and alarmed, shouts in disbelief at their actions and rushes to intervene. However, the hypnotized warriors throw their needles and charge toward the black-dressed warrior, forcing him to defend himself with his sword. The black-dressed warrior is stunned, thinking about the overwhelming strength of his opponents. He wonders how they could possibly be so much stronger, questioning whether they feel any pain at all. Even as one of them loses an arm, there is no visible sign of distress, as though they are not even alive. Meanwhile, Woon-Kang clashes with Merakium, launching an attack that Merakium narrowly evades, only to attempt a counterattack. Woon-Kang strikes again, but Merakium activates his aura sword and attempts to stab him. Woon-Kang senses the intensity of the energy, and this is far stronger than he anticipated. Merakium retaliates, his sword striking with such force that it creates a blast, pushing him back. Woon-Kang, taken aback, thinks that it feels as though his entire body is made of steel. He realizes that he will have to exhaust all his Kai just to inflict any damage. Woon-Kang curses at Merakium, taunting him and demanding to know how long he believes he can continue dodging his attacks. At that moment, Yaon calls out to Merakium, signaling that it is time to proceed with their plan. Woon-Kang asks Wind God if he sees what is unfolding, that the prelude is over, and that the second act has begun. The massacre is starting now. Merakium responds, acknowledging that it seems Woon-Kang has set the fuse for the massacre himself. Woon-Kang, confused, demands to know what Merakium means by that. At that moment, Yaon appears, flying toward them. Woon-Kang recognizes the technique and wonders if those are the void steps. Munju and Beak-Gi also notice Yaon's arrival and question what the Demon Lord is doing. Limok observes Yaon's movements, thinking that this is different from creating a platform of air using inner energy to walk. It's more like Yaon is actually flying. Liwook, seeing him too, curses Yaon and wonders what he is trying to accomplish. Yaon addresses the gathered warriors, declaring that everything happening now is the result of their own actions. One of the warriors stares at Yaon in disbelief, asking if that is truly a person. Another warrior comments that Yaon is floating in the air. Without warning, Yaon uses his powers to strike at all the warriors. Fear ripples through them as they exclaim that the ground is shaking. Their swords begin to float off the ground, rising higher into the air. The warriors panic, shouting that their swords are drifting away. Liwook, attempting to calm them, orders them not to panic, insisting that Yaon is merely trying to make them drop their weapons. Yaon channels his powerful aura, directing the floating swords toward the warriors. All the guards and Limok watch in stunned silence. An older warrior exclaims with disbelief that it's impossible. Yaon is controlling all of their swords with Kai, using sword control. Another warrior wonders if it is an enhanced sword aura. Limok wonders if this truly is something that a human can accomplish. Meanwhile, Yaon calmly issues a command to Nano, instructing it to set the targets. Nano Machine responds promptly, activating the multi-lock-on system and designating all the warriors' faces as the targets. Yaon addresses the warriors, asking if they are wondering what they will see as their final sight before death. He ominously declares that it will be his own technique, one he named himself. Yaon activates his blood aura, summoning a circle of heaven's flash. and sends the swords hurtling toward his enemies. Liwook watches in shock as the swords strike the warriors, causing them to cry out in pain and desperation. Beak-gi asks if this is truly sword control using Kai. Munju, equally stunned, observes the carnage while Beak-gi tells her to run. Together, they try to escape the oncoming onslaught. Munju wonders if this is really the work of her lordship. Meanwhile, Yaon continues to channel more of his aura and blast through the enemy lines. Hyobong watches the scene unfold, his emotions stirred. He whispers in awe, marveling at Yaon's incredible power, unable to comprehend how his lordship can be so formidable. Majum, struggling to defend against Yaon's relentless onslaught, grits his teeth. Despite using all of his inner Kai, he can barely block the attacks. He realizes the overwhelming power of his technique and orders his warriors to come together, gathering their swords to form a unified defense. However, even as they do so, each enhanced Kai-controlled sword seems to have its own awareness, targeting only their allies. As Yaon's attack strikes true, warriors fall, injured by the very weapons meant to protect them. A warrior cries out that it is impossible to control the swords as Majum instructed. He urges everyone to flee quickly, but as he speaks, he is struck by one of the swords and falls. Majum reflects that the head of a grandmaster has been obliterated in a single blow, and just as another attack approaches, he blocks it with his sword. However, the force of Yaon's strike shatters his weapon, sending him crashing to the ground. Majum thinks that he had believed their three major powers combined would be enough to subdue even a divine master. Yet, Yaon, the true monster, has proven capable of wiping out everyone here single-handedly from the very beginning. In desperation, Majum tries to escape the attack. Meanwhile, Limak watches the unfolding devastation and declares that Yaon, the heavenly demon, has returned to the Miram. Yaon's attack struck down the white-dressed warriors. One of them, still standing but gravely injured, reflects in disbelief that the members of the Heavenly Association do not cease moving, even when their limbs are severed. Yaon calmly commands Nano to target their heads, and Nano acknowledges the command and specifies a headshot aim for all targets. Namgung attempts to evade Yaon's onslaught, realizing that Yaon is now only targeting the heads. He deduces that Yaon is trying to neutralize them entirely. Frustrated, Namgung calls out to the demonic cult leader, demanding to know what he is doing, and curses him as he looks over at the white-dressed warriors, who have ceased their movements. In confusion, he wonders why everyone has suddenly stopped moving. Hyobong, noticing Namgung's hesitation, stated that even if they cannot feel pain, they are not immune to the fear of death. He suggests it is time to finish their match and unsheathes his flaming sword. Namgung curses Hyobong and challenges him, activating his Emperor Sword Principle's ultimate technique, the Blade Lotus Sword, and strikes with overwhelming force. Hyobong activates his Phantom Sword art in response, preparing to counterattack. The two engage in a fierce clash, their attacks colliding in a blast of energy. Namgung realizes that the enhanced Kai-controlled swords are now targeting him as well, complicating his defense. Struggling to maintain control, he realizes that defending with his inner Kai alone is becoming increasingly difficult. Before he can react, Hyobong swiftly strikes, cutting Namgung's arm. With a quick, Hyobong retreats, leaving Namgung to recover from the blow. Namgung cries out in pain, clutching his injured arm as he curses the unknown amateur who has inflicted such suffering upon him. He seethes at the thought of being brought low by the demonic cult scoundrels. Hyobong glances back at Namgung, enjoying the spectacle. Meanwhile, Beak-gi rallies the followers of the great heavenly demonic divine cult, commanding them to aid in eliminating the remaining enemies. His warriors quickly close in on the remaining fighters, cutting them down with ruthless efficiency. Liwook glances nervously at the battlefield. He calls out to the Blade Master, suggesting that they retreat before all is lost. He mentions a last resort that he still holds in reserve. Woon Kang is confused and asks what he means by this last resort. Liwook explains that Yaon has been wielding 200 swords, using the enhanced Kai-controlled sword technique for over 7 minutes, a feat that consumes a massive amount of inner Kai. He adds that, despite Yaon being a divine master, there must be a limit to his inner Kai, and they are nearing that point. As Liwook speaks, Yaon suddenly throws all the swords to the ground. A warrior breathes a sigh of relief, declaring that it's over, that Yaon's inner Kai must be depleted. Sensing an opportunity, Liwook begins to make a move to flee. Yaon descends to the ground, his presence looming over the battlefield as his enemies eye him warily. They murmur among themselves, recognizing that even the demonic cult leader is faltering. Liwook whispers to Woongkang, signaling that it is time to strike. Hyobong, too, senses the shift in the air, his instincts telling him that Yaon is vulnerable. He warns that it is dangerous now as Yaon nears the ground. Without hesitation, Liwook and his remaining warriors leap forward, their weapons drawn and poised for an all-out attack on the weakened Yaon. Liwook taunts him, claiming that Yaon has let his guard down and that they have been waiting for this very moment. They strike together, but Yaon raises his blood aura to block the incoming blows. At the same time, Dakyung joins the assault, unleashing his poisonous aura toward Yaon. Yet, Yaon once again deflects the attack effortlessly. He thinks to himself, astonished by how he can still emit such potent energy. Was this scoundrel deliberately luring them in? Yaon smiles darkly as he manipulates his poisonous aura, shaping it into swords that glisten ominously.